of drama with the trolls love to creep. Left a snake girl named Slithers, always losing sleep. She thinks she's the queen, but what she doesn't see is she's just a toxic mess crawling on her knees. Slithers, slithers, slither through the night. She thinks she's a diva, but she's never right. Her baby piranha snapped and bite, but everyone knows she's full of spite. Oh, she slithers in with that fake ass grin, but her charm wears thin and the bullshit begins. With a hiss and a slap, she's ready to scrap, but she's just a snake always caught in a trap. Slither, slither, everybody dance. Slithers thinks she's got a chance, but she's just a joke. Can't you see? Her kingdom's nothing but a fantasy. Oh, 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 Slithers go. Oh, 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 Slithers no. She's slithering, she's hiding, but she's all alone in a jungle that laughs where her cover's been blown. Oh, 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 Slithers go. Oh, 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 Slithers no. Oh, 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 Slithers go. Oh, 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 Slithers no. She moves from kingdom to kingdom, leaving venom in her wake, talking shit, starting fires for her own damn sake. When someone calls her out, she flips the script. With the baby piranha, she's fully equipped. Her dirty bearded king locked in his cell. Still she sings his praises, casting a spell. But the maidens of the land, they've had enough. They see through her act and they're calling her bluff. Oh, she slithers in with that fake ass grin, but her charm wears thin and the bullshit begins. With a hiss and a snap, she's ready to scrap, but she's just a snake always caught in a trap. Slither, slither, everybody dance. Slithers thinks she's got a chance, but she's just a joke. Can't you see? Her kingdom's nothing but a fantasy. Oh, 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 Slithers go. Oh, 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 Slithers no. She's slithering, she's hiding, but she's all alone in a jungle that laughs where her cover's been blown. Oh, 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 Slithers go. Oh, 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 Slithers no. Oh, 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 Slithers no. Oh, 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 Slithers no. In the dark ass dungeon with her loudspeaker on, she yells at the world from dusk till dawn, sticking up for a king who's locked up tight. She's riding his dick though he's lost the fight. She punishes the people who dare disagree with threats and curses. She's so damn petty, but the real queens, they see through the game. They know she's just a snake, hiding her shame. Slither, slither, everybody dance. Slithers thinks she's got a chance, but she's just a joke. Can't you see? Her kingdom's nothing but a fantasy. Oh, 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 Slithers go. Oh, 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 Slithers no. She's slithering, she's hiding, but she's all alone in a jungle that laughs where her cover's been blown. Oh, 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 Slithers go. Oh, 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 Slithers no. She slithers into combos where she don't belong, spreading her venom, singing the same old song. When someone disagrees, she lashes out, but her power's fading and there's no doubt. Oh, 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 Slithers go. Oh, 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 Slithers no. Oh, oh, Slithers no. Oh, 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 Slithers no.
We don't have to listen to the second part. So, I played that just for fun. I thought, why not? It kind of goes in the mood. I have decided that tomorrow I'm going to reach out to them entertainment attorneys. I haven't done it. I had to talk it over with my friend, my daughter, her son, my husband, see what they thought about it. So at this point, I'm not going to be talking about Tiffany Marie for now till I talk to the attorneys. I'm not going to be talking about Benny for now till I talk to the attorneys. I'm not going to be talking about Chicken on a Stick for now until I talk to the attorneys. I'm not going to be talking about Linda for now until I talk to the attorneys. So I'm not going to bring that up tonight. I want to try to keep it a little bit lighthearted when it comes to summer. And I just seen something that's pretty funny, and it really don't have nothing to do with summer. First, that I think that I want to share something I just seen on Jankies. She cracks me up, guys. Like, she really makes me fucking laugh. She over there talking about Matthew and his 7 kids. I don't know Matthew. I'm not involved in all their shenanigans. I know. Let me start my cam. I'm going to light a cigarette. I've had a busy day. But I was cracking up so fucking hard. I went in and I told her, I'm like, I'm playing a clip. She's like, okay. So we're going to go over and listen to Jankies for a little bit, talk about the tragedy pimps, who she thinks is a tragedy pimp. My opinions are mine. What I show, what's in my chat, it's theirs. I just find things interesting. Yes, I'm going to roll one in a minute. Not yet. But let me catch you guys up on my life, because I told you guys earlier I was going to vent, and that's what I do when I come up here. I catch you guys up on my life. My son flipped his shit, came in my house last night, flipped the fucking table because he was angry about this fucking bitch who didn't bring his kids on time. And according to him, she had the kids at a house he didn't want the kids at because it wasn't a safe environment. The kids were supposed to be here at like 8, 9 o'clock in the evening. She ended up not bringing them till almost midnight. Little girl got school. So he was flipping shit. Okay. I ended up calling the police on him. Real life. I talk about mental health here. My son was born with a diagnosis. I'm trying to 302 him. We got paperwork. They're coming. Nobody knows where he is. He's alive. He's fine because he's cussing me out all day on my text messages. When the police came last night, Mama showed up with the babies really late at night. I don't know what happened in the back in the police car, but whatever it was, it made the police call DHS on her. They allowed her to take the kids, but the reason I'm late today is because DHS came knocking on my door. And yeah, I need to protect my grandbaby, so I did what I had to. It's been a very hard day. A very hard day. My daughter came, took me out to lunch. I'm struggling. I've had these babies forever, you know, and they're my whole heart. I don't want to raise my kids' babies. I don't want to steal my kids' babies. What I want is not to have my kids turn out to be a Leilani, if that makes sense. I have some issues with the way my daughter-in-law parented her children. However, that's not my place. I wanted to get along with my daughter-in-law. She did some crazy shit. She's continuing to do crazy shit. She's harassing my son. She's tracking his phone. He had to shut her phone off because she was tracking his every movement, even when he didn't have the kids. She was demanding that he turn his tracking on when he had the kids, and then she would tell him, like, you can't go here, you can't. For fuck's sakes. He took the kids with a family, okay? A family of people to the pumpkin patch. Remember, guys, I talked about my grandson not wanting to take the face mask off. She threw a temper tantrum and threatened to get a PFA on him because he took the kids to the pumpkin patch. Like, it's every day, it's nonstop. So yesterday she comes here while the police are here, and this bitch thinks she's just going to walk in my door, okay, and start rummaging through my fucking home. Yes, her and the kid shit's here. You know what I mean? Like, it's here, but I have no problem giving it to you. But the problem was, and I even told the police she could come in, go get her shit. I'm happy to give it to her if she wanted to take the babies back immediately because the police were here. Hi, AS2. She assumed the police were here for her because of my son. That's not what happened. My son flip shit because she was late, flipped over my table behind me. I had to call the fucking police. She showed up and assumed it was for her, and she flipped shit. DHS is called. we'll see what happens. I have no control. They told me I can't go take my grandkids. So, and that's fine. That's not what I want to do. What I want for my kids is to learn how to parent their children. So I'm hoping that they open a case on the two fuckers at this point. They're my kids. I love them. I even still love Angela. And I'm putting this out there because she complained to the police about my YouTube. So we're just going to put it out there, right? Like, yeah. Listen, man, I've let these kids live with me. They've never paid a bill here. No, I'm not going to say never. When they first moved in, the agreement was $75 a week for the whole family. It was for them. They didn't have the fifth. Okay? They paid me for 2 months and then I never got paid again. My son goes out and gets like no common sense. He goes out and he gets this electric car he can't afford because he got decent credit, right? He's paid rent where he was before they moved back home. He's built his credit a little bit. He goes and buys this stupid ass electric car he can't afford. Shit gets repoed. I told you guys it was going to get repoed, right? His grandma gives him another car. Now he got this car and he is just all over the place, drinking with his friends, expecting me to raise their babies with no help, not even like I have to argue with him about formula. My husband's buying $40 cans of formula, which I have no problem doing, but you could offer a little bit. You know what I mean? No, he buys diapers. He's a good dad with his kids, but he's a little spazoid sometimes. And I had to put my foot down to it. So I've been dealing with some things, and that's why I haven't been live. And my husband's behind me sweeping the floor.
I was just trying to get things back in line. Sorry.
He's cleaning up where my son flipped my table and all my shit. Thank you, AS2. Well, that's why I'm here. Like, I want people to be able to come over here, talk, be comfortable about real life situations in a non harmful way, because I'm not harming them. I'm telling you my thoughts on them right now. I'm angry at them. And they got to learn. Like, my husband put me in my place. He's like, Crystal, you got to quit raising these kids. You got to make them kids step up. So when he did that last night, I was just like, you know what? You're right. He is beautiful chaos, huh?
So you got heart failure, and I work most of the time. Like, how are we gonna do that?
Yeah. But I did tell the DHS lady today, and I'm still swollen. I'm sorry. Plus, I went out to eat and ate bad after I was already swollen and got rid of some of it. Shh. Now I'm gonna light a fucking cigarette. But I told what was I gonna say? I told the DHS lady something. CYF. We call them CYF here. I call them DHS or whatever you guys call them just because it's a more common name. I don't hear CYF all the time. Girl. Oh, I told the DHS lady today that if they need to take the kids, that they can bring the kids here. And they didn't take the kids. However, my son was pissed because she unblocked him on Facebook. He was texting me, MFing me. She unblocked him on Facebook and was like, you're not seeing your kids again until your mom gets a place or until you get your own place. She doesn't want the kids around me. Understandable. I wouldn't either. I'd be pissed at me too. You know what I mean? Like, you don't just dump your kids for a month and a half, disappearing for a month or two before that, leaving me here with them every day, expecting me to do everything while you're doing nothing. I love her. I love Angie, my son's ex, very, very much. I love her to the moon. And I'd always be willing to help her with them children, but I'm not going to be bullied by her, if you know what I mean. All right. That's enough of that. Now let's go see Jankies because she's funny. Hold on. And then I got to get back to Quentin. I want to cover a little more summer. I just been thinking I've been busy and not really
need to know that
Okay.
I think it is. It's a beautiful name. Y'all want to know what I'm eating? You want to know what I mean? What I say?
All right, we'll start it here. I just want you guys to have a little chuckle. Matthew, no harm to you. I don't know nothing about y'all's feud. I stay out of that. I really don't know much about Jankies and Daisy, and I never had any qualms with them. I don't know if you in my chat do. This is just for fun. I like them. I like watching them. I think they're funny as a sister duo. They cover more than just Summer. They chit chat. Do I go talk in the chat all the time? No. Once in a blue moon, I'll leave a hello. I appreciate that Jankies went and put that Christmas tree out for Summer. I believe that Jankies has true intentions when it comes to Summer. I haven't followed Daisy in a long time. I was very mad at her about the Rose Bly situation because she blocked me and didn't listen to me and didn't want to hear my opinion. So Daisy and I hadn't talked, but I think we made amends tonight in Janky's chat, and I'll leave that at that. However, I do want to share this because it's funny, dude. Like, you have to be able to laugh at some shit, and the way she does this is just hysterical. And on Daisy's channel, like I said, I like watching her animals. I don't even watch her for her content. When I'm in a silly mood, I just turn her animals on. I've told you the story of how my grandson made me watch her damn gray duck for hours one time because it was biting her. He thought it was hysterical. I'm like, okay, kid. Okay. Let's watch this. I'm going to take myself down.
Sassy! Take care of your kids, you piece of trash. Real quick, that motherfucker. So is Rose. Oh, yes. I just love her little doggy's name, Rose. Mama V's doggy's name is Rose. Ain't it beautiful? She'll be over here in a minute. Big Mama ain't going to have an opportunity to get on live and not get on live. What I say? What I say? Sassy! Listen, y'all. I got to do a Matthew rant real quick. That motherfucker. He needs to get a job and quit living off my fucking tax payments to support his kids. He had 7 kids, so the fucking welfare would support him. He needs to get a job, quit drinking and smoking the doobies, and get off the taxpayers' dollars. We didn't tell you to have 7 kids so we could take care of them. You low life piece of dirty trash. You heard me, didn't you, Matthew? We did not have. I am not taking care of your kids, you piece of trash. You know what? He kicked his wife out of his house so he could draw money off his
Hey,
kid.
Hash Brown.
She's got a better looking
Hey,
boyfriend
Debbie
than y'all.
Nelson.
You should see his good look her good looking boyfriend. She got a better
Who,
deal
Big
with that
Mama?
one. Matthew's
Hey,
wife's
Eve. Hey,
boyfriend.
everybody. What are
Y'all,
you talking about?
that little bastard. He was talking about me last night. And he had
Hey,
Sun
Stephanie
King.
and John.
He
Spirit
had
Nest.
Sun King a birthday party,
Hey.
and
Who?
Sun King and them. He was talking bad about me. Yeah, I'm fat. I'll be happy to be fat, but this fat bitch works her ass off
Debbie.
every day, and I take care of my kid. I support my kid. I support my kid. I used to support my husband. Thank you very
Love
much.
you,
My
Debbie.
ex-husband now. I don't live off the freaking state. My kid has never grew up on the state besides the first 3 years of his life because he had open heart surgery and I couldn't.
Jankies, I didn't know you had a heart baby. Aw. Sadly, welcome to the club. Okay, so I don't like when people get on here and fat shame. This is why I shared this. I didn't see the chat, but I love that Janky stood up for herself. And that's how it should be. Right? Hey, I'm a bitch mama bear. That is exactly how it should be. It shouldn't be we have like people come out here and they go by your looks. They go by, you know, what you're wearing or what's sitting on your desk counter. I got harassed for a bottle of hot sauce. Told you all the story. Listen, man, I've struggled with my weight since I've had heart failure. I've gained a lot of weight on and off. I gain it, I lose it. I gain it, I lose it. I've tried fad diets. I've done everything I can. I'm doing this Ozempic. I don't think it's fucking working a bit. Husband says it is. I don't think it is. And I'm ready just to go back to keto totally. We went out to eat tonight. I did good. It's the salt I'm worried about because I'm a little swollen. But I've done keto in the past and had great results on it. COVID hit, fucked it all up. I'm just so sick and tired of people fat shaming people on here. It really makes me sick. That's not what our purpose should be here.
Couldn't work all them days. Well, I was taking care of a child that was not a machine. But then
Oh.
as soon as I got my job, I was not.
And I got to give you that. Even though these ladies might be overweight, I see both of them feeding chickens. They have cows. They're on their farms. They have cafes and diners that they're running. It ain't like they're lazy. Then they get on YouTube. Regardless, sometimes they say shit we don't like. Sometimes we say shit they don't like, right? However, I do have to say these two women work their asses off. I can see it. Just my opinion.
Not under any kind of state anything. Now he needs to shut his mouth up, quit drinking,
Hello.
and smoking marijuana with 7 kids in the house,
Big
and
mama.
worry about his wife and her boyfriend, because her boyfriend looked finer than you, you old dirty bag.
Ooh.
Looks way better than him. Facts.
Lucky
I seen her
charms.
picture. And Doozy, let me tell you something. I don't even know your name. You added me to Facebook. You hunted me down and added me to Facebook. I don't even remember your name, you stupid cunt. So quit acting like I actually give a shit about you.
Dang,
I took Summer's
big
name
mama.
off here,
What you
guys.
so mad
I took
about?
Summer's name off here, guys.
You don't get that from her very often. We'll stop it there. Hey, Karen. So I wanted to address before we move back on to Quentin. I wanted to address the other day with Killer. Killer came into my comments. He apologized to me. He said he usually doesn't have mod. He just modded her. He didn't know. He says he didn't know what happened in his chat, but his chats were right above me and below me. I don't know. But he apologized and he said he didn't mean for that to happen. He didn't know that Alexandria was chicken. I'm going to accept Killer's apology. It seemed sincere. It was in one of my comment sections on one of my videos if you guys want to see it. So Killer, thank you for reaching out and explaining it to me. And we'll leave that at that. Oh, bless you. Bless you. Let me mute so my husband can have his sneezing fit. He's a good guy, Mama Bear. He got a good heart, I think. I've never had an issue with him before that, and we've always kind of piggybanked off of each other. You know, we don't always agree with the same data, and I've explained that we don't always agree with the same research. But I don't think he means anybody any harm, and he's been thrown into a lot of shit with that green eyes too. People were accusing him of being green eyes. Yeah. So I'm going to accept Killer's apology. All right? That's where we're at. Now, on to Quentin. I don't know. You like Killer Mimi Jean? Yeah, he's cool, dude. He's cool in my opinion. And he's a gigolo. I mean, come on now. That's my favorite video on YouTube, is when he brought out his gigolo stuff. Thank you, AS, too. Aw, thank you, Lorianne. Okay, so I want to jump into Quentin because I missed like everything today. To be honest with you, I just want to start the whole damn trial over and watch it all night. However, the trial's going to start again and I can't do that. I still never got back to the clips from last weekend because of all the chaos that's going on in my own freaking life. You know what I mean? I've been really trying to like catch up, be with you guys, and deal with my own private issues here. And then the lawsuit shit and more papers in the fucking mail and more dumbasses lying, starting fucking trouble. It's rough trying to juggle a YouTube, and I'm not really used to it anymore. I used to be, but my channel hasn't really. I really took like a few long breaks, and I'm just getting back into the swing of things where I'm coming live every night. And I didn't even do that on my old channel. So I was mainly just making videos. However, I like the doing live and going over things instead of researching people's private lives unless it's brought public. Like I said, I have to protect myself and my channel. And I do think that I'm going to reach out to those attorneys tomorrow. Not that I'm taking Betty's side or this side, because I'm not involved in the Sebastian case. However, I've been played a whole hell of a fucking lot with in Summer's case. And maybe if we can get them to take more than one case, it'll stop. I'm not going to have some slithering ass snake on here telling people that I'm threatening people where they lay their head. Because like I said earlier today, that shit didn't never come from my fucking mouth. Whew. All right. So, this is not the trial. I got the wrong tab. Hold on, guys. And Jankies, you do freaking crack me up. She doesn't get on her rants where she says the C word too much. Okay. Oh, that's WJLC. Why won't it let me go forward? Hold on. Why the hell did we leave with my computer on?
You might look.
A whole bunch of videos I don't remember watching are on there. Okay, so we were after lunch.
Did not speak with Paul, but you
14 hours ago. This is the new one, right? Okay.
When I'm gonna get an opportunity to speak with the Weston's judge, I think that, I can't speak for Mr. Dean, but I think we may get into that maybe after Mr. Schneider, I don't know. So that was the only.
Yeah, I thought about that a little bit earlier too. We have a pretty hard schedule and you do need to have the opportunity to speak with them. Are they here in the building? The Westons?
They should be shortly.
Okay,
They went to lunch, but they should be shortly.
okay. So let's proceed with the special agent, with the witness that we have.
I'm sorry, Judge. Mr. Dean just reminded me something we were gonna let the court know. The Westons have asked if they could not be on camera.
I'll consider that. Is there any reason in particular?
I think it's just discomfort with, being on national coverage.
I can say we probably all feel that way. So,
But they are civilians. They are not attorneys. They're not law enforcement. And one of them is going to have to testify about a sexual liaison.
let me just give that some thought, okay? Thank-
Your Honor, that's not a valid reason to not be on camera,
I get it.
okay? The state chose to put this evidence in, they chose to call these witnesses, and I'm sorry to inconvenience them, but unless there's some other reason, we all feel that way about the cameras. So that's my position on this, Judge.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. All right, please bring the jury.
Jurors enter.
All right, and as you get to your seats, please have a seat. Welcome back. We're into the second half of the day.
I did the blooper again. I didn't talk much about summer, but somebody please remind me before I get off of here, maybe like when they go on a break. I'm going to put this on 1.5. How about that? And if we can get through this fast enough, I want to go over to Bullhorn Betty's channel and just show you that little clip I forgot I wanted to show earlier. And I also have a donation to make to that thing, but I want to do that when Lady R's in here because she worked really hard on that. So maybe I'll do that tomorrow. She probably went to sleep. She got homeschool in the morning. She's a busy mama. Okay. Yeah, someone does have to help. Let's see.
I was telling the attorneys time seems to be flying today, but maybe that's from my side, not necessarily from your side. Were you all able to follow the instructions and not to discuss the case with anyone, not to see any media? What was that?
She's fine. She said yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Okay. It almost sounded like a song. All right. So I'm going to turn now to Mr. Dean.
If I remember correctly, I think I had finished my direct examination.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that you didn't have some last questions you wanted to ask.
If I had, I would have won.
Okay, Mr. Dean, thank you. Mr. Hilliard?
Thank you, Judge. Agent Snyder, how are you doing?
Good, sir, yourself.
Pretty good, I can't complain. Some of the questions I have would be a little bit repetitive, but it's just to kind of get straight in my mind. You're in the Marine Corps, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. How long were you in the Marine Corps?
I had approximately 8 years active duty, and I just retired as a reserve officer about 2 years ago.
Well, thank you for your service, Agent Schneider. And then you went into the FBI, correct?
That's correct.
And how long have you been there?
18 years.
And during that 18 years, what is the bulk of what you've done there?
We're in a small office here in Savannah. So for the 15 years I've been in Savannah, I've worked a little bit of everything from violent crimes against children to both international and domestic terrorism. And then for the past 10 years, I've been the coordinator for the FBI Southeast Georgia Violent Crimes Task Force.
Okay. And that's for the last 10 years, right?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Does it have a cool acronym? Southeast Georgia Violent Crimes Task Force? That's
You
a mouthful.
take the first letter of every one of those words, and that's the acronym.
Okay. How would you say that then?
I wouldn't even want to, hazard a guess.
All right. So when you got involved in this particular case, you pretty much were involved on October 5th, correct?
That's correct.
All right. And on October 5th, what exactly did you do on October 5th?
October 5th started out with a call to Detective Lemons to determine whether or not Chatham County needed the FBI's assistance.
No, I don't mean a rehash of what you've already said you did. I mean, your actual involvement. Did you conduct the interviews on October 5th? Let me ask a more specific question. So on October 5th, did you conduct any interviews on October 5th?
Conducted multiple interviews on October the 5th.
And who did you interview on October 5th?
October 5th, specifically the defendant, I think on 2 separate occasions, 2 interviews with the defendant. I did not speak with Paul on October 5th, but I did speak with Danny at some point on October 5th as well.
Hold on, my pen's running out. Give me 1 second. All right, so on October 5th, you spoke with Miss Simon at least twice. You did not speak with Paul, but you did speak with Danny, correct?
That's correct.
And you spoke with Danny again on October 6th or 7th or both?
I don't recall exactly. There were multiple times. I had telephone conversations with Danny, but I know for sure I spoke with Danny on October the 7th.
Okay. So maybe on the 6th, but 7th for sure.
Absolutely.
And how about Miss Simon? You speak with Miss Simon on the 6th or 7th or no?
I don't think so. I think it was October 5th primarily.
All right. And October 7th was the day you got permission from Danny to wire the hotel room, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And I assume the hotel room was over there off of Chatham Parkway, from what my understanding was. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think it was over there off Chatham Parkway, wasn't it?
That's correct.
Okay. And you said you had, how was the room wired up?
I wasn't involved specifically in that aspect of we have a team that handles that. I just know that we had a room that we had rented adjacent to that room where we were able to live monitor on a video feed. Again, almost like a hotel room that has an adjoining door, that type of setup. And we had both audio and video in that room to hear what was going on.
And so you're in one room next door, videotaping and audio taping everything. They're in the other room living their life, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And Danny knew that it was being recorded, correct?
Absolutely.
And Miss Simon did not, correct?
She did not.
Okay. And how long did that recording last?
Less than 24 hours. I think we had it. They stayed the evening there and they checked out the following day. So I don't know the exact number of hours that we had it, but it was less than 24.
So 10-7 to 10-8 maybe?
Approximately.
Or 10-8 to 10-9, whatever it was, somewhere in that time frame. Is that correct?
I would have to look at a report to verify that, but I don't know the exact date. No, sir.
The date's not important. The point is for that time period, it was pretty much around the clock surveillance, correct?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
And he also gave you permission to tap his phone, correct?
That's correct. He did.
And how long did that last?
It was at least 30 days. I think we did one renewal, so it may have been for a 60-day period. But again, there was another agent that was handling the administrative aspects of that. I believe it was possibly 60 days.
Okay. Oh, and I'll ask, I mean, did you review the video and audio tape of the hotel room?
Just excerpts of that. Again, there were multiple facets to this investigation, and that's not something that I personally did, was review that particular video.
So you saw excerpts, but you didn't watch the whole thing.
That's correct.
I assume anything of any importance or what you deem relevant, you would look at, correct?
Not necessarily. The agent that was responsible, for that would have reviewed that and highlighted that.
And who was the agent that was responsible for that?
I believe that was Special Agent Solomon that had that
Okay.
responsibility.
All right. So Solomon was the one who was ahead of that particular
That's correct.
endeavor, correct?
Yes, sir.
Right. And Danny's phone, who was the special agent in charge of that one? Was that you or was that Agent Solomon as well?
The particular aspects, so both Agent Solomon and myself obtained the consent, from Mr. Youngkin to get the authorization to wiretap that phone. But the day-to-day monitoring of that phone was Special Agent Solomon's responsibility.
Okay, and that's fine. So Solomon basically watched the video and audio from the hotel room and reviewed the tap on the phone, correct?
That's correct. Again, not solely her responsibility. There were, multiple, people reviewing that, but primarily it fell on her shoulders.
Okay, and that's fine. So, but you did interview Danny on the 5th, maybe the 6th, but definitely the 7th, correct?
That's correct. And again, I had, in between those times, I had multiple telephone conversations with Danny as well.
All right. And do you recall the conversation and the interview you had with Danny on October 5th?
You have to give me more clarification on that, sir.
Well, have you, in preparation for trial, have you reviewed that interview with him?
Which particular interview, sir?
The first interview you had with Mr. Youngkin.
I'm sure I had at some point.
Okay. And do you remember when he said there was nothing weird about her going to Arkwright Drive in that interview?
Not specifically, but again, she provided that information in the interview that I was present for, that she had been to Arkwright Drive 100 times or more.
Okay. Did he ever say that he had gone to Arkwright Drive?
I don't know that Danny had mentioned that to me, but we do know through the course of the investigation that Danny accompanied her. Either he was driving or the defendant was driving on the numerous occasions that they traveled to Arkwright Road.
Did he ever talk about going out there by himself?
Not that I recall, no, sir.
Did he ever admit to going out there by himself, to the best of your knowledge? For you, at least.
Not that I recall.
Okay. Now, in that initial interview, do you remember him saying that he was awake when she got back from Arkwright?
Yeah, I'm going to object on hearsay grounds to any, I'm glad if he's live, any further questions about what Danny did or didn't say. And he's testified at this point.
Your Honor, it's not hearsay. He's already testified, okay? This is the agent that conducted the interview. I have the absolute right on cross-examination to talk about the inconsistencies in Danny Youngkin's statements to him versus what he testified here in court. So whatever issue he has, it's not hearsay, number one. Danny's already testified to this. Number two, the agent has the right to testify as to his recollections. If he doesn't recollect it, great, we move on. But if he does, it's a proper cross-examination question, Judge.
Mr. Dean.
I just don't think that's a proper reading of the current rules of evidence that have been in place for the last 10 years or so. If there was something that Mr. Youngkin was confronted with while he was up there and given it a chance to confirm, deny, explain, then it would be a proper subject for testimony by another witness. But if not, you can't just ask another witness what a witness who testified previously said just because they testified.
Before we go any further into the weeds in this argument, I'm going to allow you leeway to go ahead and ask these questions. I'm overruling the objection.
Thank you, Judge. So, Agent Snyder, do you remember Danny saying that he, at 3:30 when he got up to feed Sky, that Quentin was okay? And he saw him.
I don't recall that, no, sir.
Okay. Do you remember him saying at 5:30 that Quentin was okay?
I do recall Danny saying that on October the 5th. But in the October the 5th interview, it was unfathomable to Danny, that something like this had taken place. So while Danny did on October 5th during that interview mention that he did indeed see Quentin, we further went down that path with Danny on multiple occasions, specifically October 7th. And he could not recall seeing Quentin as he walked out of that bed that morning. It was a rush that morning. He was late for work. The positioning of his bed.
Your Honor,
The
at this point in
dark
time, I'm going to
hours.
object. It's non-responsive to the question I asked, number one. He's basically giving a narrative to what was basically a yes or no question. I understand he's trained to do that, but it's still improper.
Mr. Dean?
The general proposition that the witness is allowed to finish his answer. Mr. Hilliard is the one that's inviting all this testimony about out-of-court statements made by Daniel Youngkin. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, as nobody says anymore.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. Special Agent, you do speak in paragraphs. So, Mr. Hilliard, ask your question. Agent, answer the question.
Isn't it true on October 5th that Danny Youngkin stated that he had glanced in the crib at 5:30 and Quentin was okay?
That's what he said on October 5th.
Now, isn't it also true that he also said he was the one that texted the babysitter that the kids were staying home that day, correct? On October 5th.
Danny did state that on October the 5th.
Okay. Now, do you remember during the conversation where Danny got angry and said that he needed to drink?
Could you please restate that one, please, sir?
I will. Do you recall him stating that he's having a bad day, it feels weird, and that he drinks all the time and needed a drink to even himself out?
And what date was that, sir?
October 5th, I believe. If you don't remember, that's fine.
I'm going to ask, why is defense asking these questions?
Well,
No, Mr. Dean.
you have to have Mr. Hilliard monologize on his theory of the case in presence of the jury.
Approach.
I'll do it if he will, Judge, I promise. If he'll refrain from doing it, I'll be glad to.
No, y'all approach the bench. The other attorneys come to. Okay, we're back on the record now after a sidebar. Mr. Hilliard?
All right, Agent Snyder. So let's go back to October 7th meeting with Mr. Youngkin. Okay. So you set up, did the hotel and the wiretap, right? So then that all went into place that night or the next day, whatever it says.
The
On,
next day,
right. Whatever it says on the paperwork is what it did, right?
correct.
Okay. And so did you conduct any surveillance other than those two things of the parties?
In what aspect, sir?
Well, I mean, we know that you had the audio and the video in the hotel room. We know that you had Mr. Youngkin's phone tapped. We know that you already pulled all of the phone records at that point, correct? Did you ever pull any, and you may or may not have, I'm just asking, did you ever put any of the other family members under surveillance or anything like that?
We placed a pole camera, on a telephone pole outside the residence of the defendant.
Okay. And that's at 535 Buckhalter?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Right. How long was that there?
I couldn't tell you for sure, sir. It was, 30 days at the most.
Now, during the interview that we just saw with Ms. Simon, you kept making statements to her. Some of those statements were true, but not all of those statements were true, were they?
You'd have to.
Point you to the inconsistent or
Exactly.
incorrect statements? Well, one of the things you said was that Paul says something entirely different than what you do. Okay. What was it that Paul said that was entirely different? I don't recall.
Yes, I think the clear piece there is Paul told the truth.
Well, that's your answer, but I asked you a specific question. What was an item of information that Paul said that Leilani didn't say?
Yeah, again, throughout the course of the investigation, Paul told the truth, and the defendant didn't tell the truth.
Your Honor, that's a non-responsive answer. Please instruct the witness to answer the question.
Agent, if you would please listen to the question and as best you can answer the question.
You made a statement that Paul said something entirely different than Leilani Simon in the interview we just watched. What was that piece of information that was completely different?
Objection. Hearsay. And I can elaborate if the court would like me to.
You can elaborate.
Did you want us to
State-
approach?
Sure.
Agent Snyder, isn't it a common interrogation technique to use half-truths or complete falsities in order to try and induce a defendant to make a statement to you?
That's correct. We do that through the course of our investigations.
And isn't it also an interrogation technique that you will try and put stress and strain on them along the way to try and induce them to make a statement to you?
That is a technique.
Okay. And stirring up those emotions and keeping them in emotional turmoil is a fairly common interrogation technique, is it not?
That can be a technique that's utilized, yes.
Okay. And is that the technique you employed here?
The video speaks for itself.
And so you're saying that was not the technique you employed here then?
Specifically, the technique used in this one was something we refer to as a SUE. That's the strategic use of evidence to get to the facts of the investigation.
Well, let's talk about that. You had multiple interviews with Ms. Simon, correct?
Multiple, yes, sir.
And I guess it's safe to say that many of them were similar to this one, correct?
They were, yes, sir.
And the one thing is through all of those interviews, she's never admitted to harming her child in any way, correct?
I wouldn't say that's 100% correct, no, sir.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. Did she say that she shot her kid?
She did not, no, sir.
Did she say that she stabbed her kid?
She did not, no,
Did she
sir.
say that she strangled her kid?
No, sir, she did not.
Did she say that she beat her kid with a blunt object?
At no point in time did she say she committed a violent act.
Okay. So that was a consistent statement throughout all of the strategic use of evidence. She's never made that statement to you or anyone else, correct?
That's correct.
Let's talk about the hotel camera. So you have the hotel camera. You say that Danny was aware of it. She was not. Did she ever make any statements to Danny in that hotel room like that?
Again, I didn't review 100% of that video, so I couldn't 100% answer that with accuracy.
All right, well, then let's back it up. Did Agent Solomon tell you it was a relevant portion for you to look at and send it to you?
I don't recall, no, sir.
Was that something you would normally recall if you got?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you didn't get it. It wasn't sent to you, right?
That's correct, yes, sir.
All right. Same thing. You had tapped his phone for 60 days at least. And I assume you got all relevant text, phone calls, or intercepts from Leilani Simon to Danny Youngkin, correct?
We got every call that came into Danny Youngkin's phone, both incoming, outgoing calls, just as your phone would have pinged those calls. We received every call that came into Danny Youngkin's phone.
And did you review those calls, or were you told the relevant portions of those calls and text with the defendant?
I don't recall the exact number, but you can imagine in a 30 to 60 day period, there were hundreds of calls. So no, I did not review every call, but there were pertinent calls that we do have.
Okay. Any of those pertinent calls say, I harmed my child, or I did this to my child?
Not that I recall, no, sir.
Okay. And again, this is after 60 days of around the clock monitoring, correct?
That's correct, yes, sir.
Now, I'm going to talk to you about the interview that we just watched again. And what's a perk 30?
It's a opioid narcotic, commonly used following minor to major surgeries as a painkiller.
Okay. It's like when you say opiate, is it like Oxycontin or something like that? I mean, I don't know what it is. I'm asking you because you know more than I will. But what exactly would a common name be that we know about?
I'm not exactly sure. I know it's a combination of like an acetaminophen, so a Tylenol-based drug, in conjunction, with an opioid, a fentanyl, type drug. So it's a lesser degree of a fentanyl, drug in the opioid classification.
All right. And I assume cocaine. Well, let me ask you this. Do you have any knowledge of what the effect of a perk 30 is on somebody if they take it? If you don't, that's fine.
No, I think the defendant explained that herself.
Okay. And what was that effect then?
The best I can recall from seeing the video that you watched was a drunken state, a loopy state. The specific pill that she took had a delayed reaction, she said. I couldn't explain past that.
And that's fine. You might not know. What about cocaine?
What she was doing and the perk, taking the Percocet, the cocaine, and marijuana, commonly referred to on the street, if you will, as speedballing. And those three drugs are what she admittedly was on that night.
Does cocaine put you to sleep, or is it more of a stimulant?
Again, I couldn't tell you, for sure, but it's my understanding that it affects people in different ways. Some individuals, it acts as a stimulant, and some individuals, it does put to sleep.
All right. Well, based upon your experience and training, okay, what have you been trained that the effects of it are?
Again, as I disclosed in an interview, I'm not a narcotics agent, but I can tell you, what she said, what I've heard from other individuals, and that's all I can tell you.
Okay. And was I correct that, and I may have misheard it, but on the interview that we just watched, did Miss Simon say that Missy had smoked weed or done drugs, something or something of that point. It was a very fleeting thing. I may have misheard it. I'm just asking you if you recall something like that.
I do recall that. That was about midway through this October the 12th interview, where I allowed her to continue to tell the same story that she had told over and over and over about the Orajel. And when we confronted her on that the first time, she tried to, say, well, the reason that she probably doesn't remember that is because she smokes crack. So defamation of character to a young lady who wasn't even involved in this entire process.
Again, Your Honor, I ask the witness to please answer the question and not proselytize. It's non-responsive.
I'm going to say 2 things. One, he's answering the question. I'm going to ask you not to go any further than you need to.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Agent Schneider, with your investigation, I guess, in this case, you conducted interviews, you set up the landfill search, and you've been involved in it pretty much from the beginning, if I'm not, is that correct?
100%, yes, sir.
Okay. So when you said you only got the excerpts from the hotel and video, right? Of Danny and Leilani in the hotel? You were only given short pieces of video to watch, correct?
I've seen short clips of the video. That's correct, yes, sir.
And were you given daily summaries of what happened or summaries of what happened for that entire time frame? I know you didn't monitor it.
There was probably a point in time, the case team got together and we discussed, that particular CCTV footage. That's correct, yes, sir.
Okay. And the only people that were in that hotel room, though, was Danny and Leilani, correct?
That's correct, yes, sir.
I don't believe Zane or Sky were there, and I don't believe anybody else was there, correct?
That's correct, yes, sir.
And Agent Solomon was the one who was in charge of that one, though, right?
That's correct.
Now, you also, I think that's all the questions I got, Judge. I'll leave it right there.
Any redirect? Mhm.
No redirect, Your Honor.
All right, very good. So shall this witness be released?
I'm thinking so, Judge, yeah.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. You're excused. State may call its next witness.
I'll give a few moments too, Judge, if that's okay.
Okay, is it enough for a break? A few moments. Yes, let's let everybody have a minute. Y'all just stay right there, and we're gonna see where we are.
Your Honor, I think we do need a little bit of a break to arrange some things.
Okay, all right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take a short break. Please observe the court's instructions. You thinking about 15 minutes or so?
Yes, Your Honor. That should be fine.
Okay, we're going to recess for 15 minutes. And
Was I muted?
Thank you, Williams. So while we take this 15 minutes, I think Court TV needed to shift the camera. Do y'all want to take? Okay, that's fine. That's even better. I thought you kind of needed it in the middle of the day, but the end of the day sounds very good. All right,
Question I had, if I can step out and speak to the Westons real quick.
go ahead and do that.
That's one thing. The second thing is something I need to talk to Mr. Dean about. I don't think he's gonna do it, but I just want to ask you for it.
So why don't we release everybody? We're in recess. We'll give Mr. Hilliard a minute to come in. Was he in the hallway?
No, he's in the back of the tent.
It's fine. No, it's fine. Give him a minute. You can bring Miss Simon now. All right, so we are back on the record. Counsel for both parties are at their tables. Let the record reflect that Ms. Simon is also with her counsel. All right, the jurors are out of the courtroom right now. I think there are probably a couple of matters that we need to take up. So who's gonna go first? Mr. Dean, let's just start with you.
I'll go first.
Mr. Hilliard.
First thing is, Judge, I was not able to speak with the Westons. I don't know if they're here or not. I don't know if we're going to get to them today. But I did attempt. I didn't see them in the hallway. And that's a question for the state to deal with. But I would like to speak with them before they testify. And that has not occurred yet. And that's the first issue. The second issue is we may have something else to deal with. We just have to wait and see if it happens or pops up. Mr. Dean brought 2 boxes of materials up here. While I suspect it's probably items that have already been introduced to evidence, what I also suspect is he has individual copies made with the jurors. I don't know if he's going to try and do that versus publishing them on the screen. We'll deal with that when we get there. That's just my assumption. I don't know. So we'll have to wait and see.
All right, Mr. Dean. Go ahead.
We do have, Your Honor, an individual copy for each juror of State's Exhibit 77. I could bring one up for the court.
If you would.
Yeah, I can explain why we're doing it this way. These are photographs of Quentin's remains as recovered from the landfill on November 18th. I intend to introduce these into evidence through the testimony of Special Agent Solomon. There was a moment earlier in the trial where I put some kind of blurry pictures of the remains as they appeared to Dr. Christensen at the lab up on the screen. I didn't need to do that. Well, I meant to do it, but I forgot that I intended not to. In any case, those pictures were kind of blurry and difficult to make out. These are higher quality and a little more graphic, and I don't want to put these on the screen. So, we choose the manner in which we publish individual exhibits to the jury, and the way that we've chosen to do this is make an individual binder for each juror so that we don't have to display Quentin's remains on a TV screen. So I don't know that sounds like maybe there's an objection to that practice, that procedure coming. I don't know if it's been
Well, let me just
raised yet.
ask for course information. So I see the photographs. Would these photographs show on the screen, or can you do that digitally? I know the first few that you showed with the earlier witness were a little on the blurry side. That's one question. I guess the other is, when you publish, when you ask to admit these and when you publish, you want to give them a book.
That's right. Once the witness is identified and authenticated the exhibit and has been introduced into evidence, I would then distribute a copy to each juror and then ask the witness a couple questions about them and then give them a few moments to peruse the rest of them themselves. I do not have those images in my digital trial exhibits folder, specifically because of the way I had intended to do this.
Okay. Mr. Hilliard?
Well, we do object to it. I understand the concern about putting it on the TV screen, but my concern is about handing the individual binder as well. I mean, like Mr. Dean said, they're graphic pictures, they're also cumulative, other exhibits that have already come in. So my opinion is, after seeing this, and this is the first time I've ever made this objection, so I don't do it lightly. I just think it's meant to inflame the jury. I think it's meant to inflame the passions of the jury. And Mr. Dean is correct, 9 times out of 10, he gets to pick the manner and method by which something is published to the jury. But this is one of those things where I think the whole point behind it is to inflame the jury, is to make the jury feel a certain way by showing them graphic pictures, which Mr. Dean said, and I tend to agree with him. So I understand why he's doing it. I just object to it. I think that this is one of those things where, to be sensitive, it can be published, it can be admitted into evidence. I understand that. I don't really have a valid legal objection to that. But as far as the publishing goes, I think it's, and again, it's just my preference. It shouldn't be on the screen. It probably shouldn't go over the TV. And it's one of those things that they can introduce it and then pass it down and let each one individually see it. Like I said, it's just, I think it's done to inflame the jury, to prejudice the defendant. And that's the only real objection that I have to it. It's just, it's duplicative, it's cumulative, and it's meant to inflame the passion of the jury.
May I respond?
Yes.
It's not duplicative of anything. These are photographs that were taken in Savannah before transport. That's different from what was taken at the lab in Quantico. It's not intended to inflame the passions of the jury. It's intended to show them the evidence in the case. I'm familiar with the autopsy photo case law and the crime scene photo case law. And all that law is about, it's really about the blood for the most part. Blood and being able to see eyeballs and things like that of deceased people and viscera. And in that sense, these are far less graphic than those types of photos the courts sometimes take issue with. To me, it's more a matter, I shouldn't say graphic, it's more a matter of just reverence for the subject matter that I didn't want this on national television. That's why I've done it this way. Now, it seems like the objection has kind of been distilled down to the question of whether it's one binder passed around versus a binder for each. Well, I'm going to be asking the witness questions about just a couple of these photos. And the thing about juries is that there are 16 jurors, not just one. And so that's why we've made one for each of them. It's typical in a lot of courts for jurors throughout the trial to have a binder that contains every exhibit that's to be admitted in the trial. And then as they're admitted, they turn to the next tab. And that's how it's done in a lot of courts. There's no prohibition against this. And I guess I just don't totally understand the objection. Mr. Hilliard has now conceded that he thinks they're admissible, that he thinks they can be published, that he thinks it's appropriate not to put them on the screen. We've kind of gotten down to how many binders is the jury going to get? And given that I'm going to be asking the witness to describe a couple things in these pictures, they all need to have their own. Unless we want to bring them out of the box and have them huddled around one binder, and I just don't see the point of that.
Well, or you could consider publishing, as you publish other evidence on the screen, and then we can instruct the cameras not to show the screen.
Well, I can't do that now because I didn't bring them over digitally. I mean, we made our exhibits the way we made them, and honestly didn't. I mean, if we're talking about prejudicial effect, then my question is, what is the difference?
Mhm.
Like to have it on a 60-inch monitor versus the binder.
Mhm. And one other question I have as well, is it your intention for the binders to go out to the jury room?
One of them. I mean, the clerk's exhibit,
Of
that's
course,
submitted
they're all
will
gonna
go
go.
out. We're not going to send them each back with their own one of these strictly for the portion in which we're publishing this exhibit. And then we'll take them all up.
And then you collect them. All right.
And just to distill it down for Mr. Dean, okay, I agree with him. I don't have a legal objection to it, but there is a difference. Handing 16 people their individual binders with these graphic pictures in them is not the same thing as everyone seeing it at the same time on the screen as the witness testifies, okay? So it's not quite the same thing. And that's the main basis for the objection is if we have it on the screen and the witness is testifying, saying, this is what we found, this is what we found, this is what it is. Everyone's seeing and experiencing that at their own time and their own pace. Jurors with 16 different binders flipping through at different times and different paces are not having the same experience, number one. And number two, they are, and I agree with Mr. Dean to a certain extent, he's right, they're giving the autopsy photos and the viscera and the blood and all of that. These are not like that, but by the same token, I don't care who you are. When you're looking at the remains of a 20-month-old child, that evokes a response from it.
Okay.
And so that's kind of why I think it's one of those, the TV doesn't need to see it, I agree with that, but I also don't think that 16 people need to have their own individual thing come through. If the witness is going to testify and they're going to lay a foundation and they're going to do it, it should be on the screen, it should be one at a time, it should be a group experience. As an example, I will use videotape as testimony. We watch a videotape in here, if the 16 jurors go back and deliberate, or 12 jurors go back and deliberate, and there's a deliberating, have a question about a video, they all have to come out and they all have to sit, and they all have to watch the exact same thing in the courtroom at the same time and have the exact same experience. It's not 12 different experiences, it's one experience, and they can go back and deliberate. So to me, handing out the 16 different binders of this many pictures is going to have 16 different experiences while the witness is testifying. So I do think it's prejudicial. I do think that, like I said, normally I've never made this objection before, but I do see that as being a problem in this case, and I hope that makes sense. I'm trying to make it make the most sense I can. So,
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna come back to that one. I'm gonna take that one under advisement for just a moment. The witness that you have for these exhibits, is that one of the witnesses that's coming next?
Yes, Your Honor, she's our next witness.
Okay, and as to, I'm gonna go back to the Westons. So, Mr. Hilliard got notice last night about the addition of these witnesses, although I know that they have had information about them throughout the discovery process. Are the Westons scheduled to testify today as well?
Your Honor, we don't anticipate calling them this afternoon right now. And before we do call them, of course, we'll give Mr. Hilliard an opportunity to talk to them if they're willing.
and I anticipate, I can't speak for them, but I anticipate Ms. Solomon's probably going to be the bulk of the afternoon today anyway, which is fine. If they'll provide me the contact information for them, I can call them tonight. That way it doesn't really slow.
So I'm hearing the Weston issue is not an issue.
Not for
Not
today.
right now, Judge.
Okay, very well. Things are subject to change, but not for now. I'll take that. Okay, so the issue now is about the exhibits and how they'll be published. Give me a couple of minutes. Let's recess for about 10 minutes.
No, add a little bit of creamer. All right, guys, what do you think? I was listening and talking to my husband for a minute. I went and grabbed my blanket. I'm getting a little chilly. I had bought went to Five Below today, and I got some really fuzzy socks. I'm so happy for them. They're like slipper socks. But I had to take them off. They were making my feet sweat. So the Westons don't testify today. He talks to him at night. That's sad about the pictures, man. I don't want to see the pictures. They've tracked her every step. Yeah. Taxpayer money. Why wouldn't she? All right, I could fast forward. That's what I'm going to do.
We'll pare it down and prepare it to go forward without the notebook. I will tell you, if you'd like to, you can do it that way, or you can do it on the screen. I know you're not prepared today to do it digitally.
I can do it on the screen, but I do need to respond to a couple of the
Sure.
portions of the courts over there. So first, I can say that there are no duplicate images in here. There are 66 images because they took 66 pictures.
Okay.
Those pictures were taken in Savannah. Now, I cannot, and nobody can, probably not even the forensic anthropologist, go through here and say which ones of the bones in these photographs were determined later at the lab to be human versus non-human and call them out here, because that's a determination that wasn't made until the bones were at the lab and each assigned their individual number. So,
Guys, I'm going to do like I did the other day. I'm going to walk away from the computer if they start showing pictures. So if I'm not chatting, I'm still listening just with my head turned.
So if I were to hand that binder to Dr. Christensen, she could say, 28 TAC 1, I identified as not of human origin, but I didn't take these pictures. I can't tell you which one of these pictures 28 TAC 1 ended up being. So the only way to do this, and what we're trying to do here, is introduce this as an exhibit that represents all of the material that was collected and packaged on November 18 as suspected human remains and sent to Quantico for analysis. Beyond that, that is, I understand why the court has asked me to do that, but that is just simply not something that can be done with this exhibit because there's a determination that wasn't done until later by the witness that we've already heard from.
The non-human versus human.
Right. I mean, the whole point.
And I understand that.
So I can do it. I mean, I guess here's what I would propose. The exhibit marked is authenticated by the clerk or authenticated by the witness and introduced into evidence. And now we have one binder of evidence. In it, of that, I would publish 3 images. 3 images. And the way I can do it is I have them on my computer now. I could pull up 3 images digitally that are in that binder and have the witness talk about those 3 and what they appear to her to be. And what I'm doing here is just the ones that are most obviously human because that's what she can testify to as a lay witness, I think, and then be done with it. So that's how I would propose to do it.
Okay, so you'll publish three of the photos.
It's like 3 or 4, I think.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I'm not gonna hold you there, but the images, the 66 images that are in the binder, you would want those admitted into
That
evidence.
it should all come into evidence because it is the evidence that was collected and it is the evidence that was transported. And then, it's the witness from Quantico has now testified that not all, but something like 75 or 80% of those bones were identified as human. To me, I don't think that should stop us from putting in the full suite of pictures of everything that was collected that day and set up for that analysis. I mean, it's the evidence in the case.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dean. Mr. Hilliard?
So just I understand what Mr. Dean's proposing, because he wants to, and I agree. Those are all the pictures that were taken.
Mhm.
They're going to come in as a single exhibit. It's going to publish 3 photographs up there. And my second question is are we not going to broadcast those photographs? That's the only other really concern I had that wasn't addressed yet.
Okay, so your concern is that the images when shown on the video, that they're not shown.
Right, so at least not broadcast for
That's
that,
fine.
for that particular
I
portion.
don't have a
they
problem
can,
with that. Mr. Dean?
I would support that. Yeah.
so I think that resolves the issue as to these exhibits, if I'm understanding everything correct.
I already got a thumbs up.
So that works for me.
They'll divert the camera. Avert the camera. So, okay. So is there anything else that we need to take up before bringing in the jury?
Not for me, Judge.
No, you're
All right, very well. Please bring in the jury.
Jurors insert.
All right, thank you very much, Williams. Please have a seat. Welcome back. We're going to start up testimony once again. Was everyone able to comply with the instructions?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. There goes that song again. Okay. All right, Mr. Dean.
Savannah Solomon.
Perfect. Beautiful temperature. It's 80 degrees outside. Right hand. The evidence you shall give the court and jury in the trial of this issue should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
All right, good afternoon.
All right, could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Hey, my name is Special Agent Savannah Solomon with the FBI.
And what office are you with?
I'm with the Savannah Resident Agency out of the Atlanta Division.
how long have you been an FBI special agent?
For 6 years.
And can you tell us a little bit about your educational background before joining the FBI?
I attended Georgia Tech, where I majored in economics, international affairs, and French, and went straight to Tulane for my master's in business administration and finance and entrepreneurship. Following graduation, I joined the FBI as an analyst, where I worked in Charlotte and the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force Fusion Center in Washington, D.C., before becoming an agent for 8 years.
Okay, so after working in Charlotte as an analyst, you went to the academy, I guess?
I went to Washington, D.C. at our headquarters for 3 years and then the academy.
Okay, and is Savannah, where you've been, Savannah, Georgia, I should say, where you've been the entire time as a full-fledged special agent?
That is correct.
Do you work closely with Brad Snyder?
I do.
I want to ask you about your involvement in the case. Did you become involved on day one on October 5th?
I did.
And did you go to Chatham County Police Department headquarters and participate in an interview or some interviews?
I did.
What detective were you paired up with?
Detective Nobles.
And whom did you interview that day of the three that we've been talking about?
Daniel Youngkin.
Okay. Can you tell us about his level of cooperation in the day one interviews?
He was forthcoming in regards to items about Quentin. He minimized on drug use and was defensive of Leilani.
What do you mean by defensive about Leilani?
He believed anything that she had told him that day and was told us he believed it was true.
Okay. So he didn't want to believe that she had done anything, basically.
Correct.
Can you tell us about his demeanor and tone in the interviews and his willingness to answer questions?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for opinion.
You're asking about the demeanor that she observed? I'm gonna.
I interviewed him twice that day, once around 1:30 in the afternoon and once around 11 p.m. So it was a long day. He was willing to answer questions. I'd say by 11 was pretty tired of any line of questioning.
Okay. After your, well, let me ask you this. At some point that day, did you go to the residence at 535 by Calder Road?
I did.
And where did that fit into your involvement at Chatham County Police Department headquarters that you've been talking about?
After my first interview of Danny, the group kind of reconvened on what had happened in the different interviews. And because there was no need to continue talking at that point, Taylor Burns and I drove to the Buckhalter Road residence to assist with the search.
Now, were you present when Chatham County Police Department forensics were photographing the residents and various outbuildings and things?
I was.
And did you go in the garage yourself?
I did.
I'd like to display an image from State's Exhibit 10. It's image 109 in State's Exhibit 10. And let me see whether I can get the screen to cooperate here. All right. See that up on the screen?
I do.
What is that red thing? First of all, what room or building are we in at that house right now?
This is the garage outbuilding beyond, like separate from the house and the pool area.
What is that red thing towards the bottom center of the picture?
That's a Mickey Mouse race car driver toy.
Is it like a stuffy kind of thing?
It is.
Okay. Can you describe how that thing looked to you that day?
As you can see, it's just kind of thrown in a garage with a bunch of tools and covered in cobwebs and looks like it's been there for a minute.
Was this significant to you at the time?
It was.
And why is that?
Because Leilani had reported Quentin missing with his favorite toy, a Mickey Mouse toy.
And is that something that anybody else mentioned to you, him having a favorite toy, Mickey Mouse toy?
No. No one knew about a Mickey Mouse toy when I asked them about it.
Well, let me show you a video clip. At some point, did you have an exchange with the defendant while she was between interviews?
I did.
And can you tell us what was going on at that point? Like, where were you and where was she?
During the resident search, after it had gotten into nighttime, I was called back to Chatham County Police because they needed more people to escort the three individuals that were still there. So at that point, I was just sitting in the hallway with eyes on the different doors, and she was sitting in an interview room.
At some point, did she open up to you about some of her behavioral issues or anger issues?
She did.
I'm going to play for you a clip from States Exhibit 13, it's a file bearing the file name Interview Room 2126 to 2229.
Need anything? Or sit down a little bit longer?
Okay.
Thank you so much for being patient with us. It's a lot that we're trying to work through and figure out. So, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Did I do well?
Yeah, I appreciate you.
As much detail as I could, but I was being like, this is who.
A lot of good detail in here.
I mean, this is the wrong clip. I'm looking for Interview Room 2057 to 2103.
There are days that I wake up or days that something so little just may happen. And it's like a trigger. And it's not, it's almost like I'm a completely different person, the way I talk, the way I move, the way I look at you, everything, even my tone of voice. Can you feel that happening? You know? Where it's like, normally when it happens, I finally reached a certain level of anger or stress or whatever it might be at that moment that I just, it's like a switch. Yeah. I don't even realize it until after I've calmed down that I just seriously tripped on you and treated you like that for no reason. And then I'm left apologizing to everybody. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm crazy. I don't know what happened. I don't even know why I did that. And half the time when it happens or randomly happens like that, it's not like the slowly transition or whatever. It's it's because I don't even know how to explain it. If I'm doing pretty good throughout the day and I got a good day overall, and then something might trigger me, it's slower. Okay. I can feel it. I can feel myself changing the way I talk, the way I think, the opinions I have, everything, feel the difference. But when it happens, like a day like today with the amount of stuff going on and stress and emotion or whatever, that's just not.
So that was day one of the investigation, right?
Correct.
On that day, was there a point where you spent some time alone with the defendant in a setting that wasn't recorded?
Yes, at some point around that time period of that video clip.
Did it have something to do with a cigarette or something like that?
She needed a smoke break outside, so I walked out with her.
At some point during that interaction, or maybe it was another one that day, did she say something to you about getting a tattoo?
Yes, she showed me her Hawaiian symbol tattoo about the waves going up and down and said that she wanted to get a tattoo in honor of Quentin along with it.
And this was on October 5?
It was.
She was talking about getting a tattoo with it.
In honor of him, yes.
Okay. At this point in time, was she still kind of representing the story that Quentin had been abducted?
Yes.
Was anybody yet talking about Quentin being dead?
We suspected it within the investigative team, but it had not been discussed outside of the investigative team.
I'd like to ask you a couple questions about your involvement over the following days. Did you follow up in reference to Danny's workplace?
I did.
Can you describe that follow-up, please, without talking about what anybody said to you, but what did y'all go out there to do?
Detective Noble and I met with Danny and Leilani's supervisor and spoke with him. He put us in touch with the corporate security who had video footage from the plant or the warehouse.
And did they turn footage around to you?
They did.
Why was it important to you to go out and talk to Danny's boss and to get video footage of what he looked like when he was leaving work?
We were doing our best to corroborate every single statement that had been made to us in the previous 24 hours to include how and when Danny learned that Quentin was missing.
How he reacted?
Correct.
I'd like to draw your attention to the defendant's October 8th interview with Bridget Rock at the FBI office in Savannah.
Okay.
Were you present for that?
Not in the interview room, but I was in the office observing.
How did you observe that interview?
Closed circuit television through the office.
Okay, so did you watch it as it was occurring?
I watched much of it as it was occurring. I was also watching Danny in a simultaneous interview.
Did you observe any unusual behavior by the defendant on that day with reference to Bridget Rock's belongings or equipment or anything?
I did. Agent Brock had stepped out of the room, but the cameras were still rolling, and the defendant walked up to Ms. Brock's computer system and unplugged it. And when it made a noise, she plugged it back in and sat back down.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to catch you.
I'm sorry, that was after looking at the cameras and down the hallway.
Was there something about Richard Rock's notes as well that have been left on the desk?
Not that I observed.
Okay. That evening, October 8th, that was the hotel surveillance operation.
It was
And how many nights did that go on for? Was it one? two?
one night.
Okay, just the one night. Were you involved in proposing that idea to Daniel Youngkin?
Yes,
And that would have been like the day before the 7th?
it was.
Tell us about his reaction to that proposal.
The day he came to us, he was pretty broken in a lot of ways. He was still trying to figure out what he believed had happened. He was worried about his child, and was beginning to have conflict between believing Leilani less, but also his loyalties to her, and was working through that. So when we got to the point of talking through a lot of his concerns there, he was willing, and actually was the one who said, are you going to want to wire up the hotel room? And we said, only with your permission. We wouldn't do that without your permission. So
Are you saying he, like, yes? I want to make sure I understand what you're saying.
we had,
Were y'all planning to ask him that?
we were planning to ask him that. So we were going down that road, but he was the first one to address wiring the room.
Okay, so he's the one who brought it up, even though you were about to?
Right.
Okay. Can you discuss briefly just the logistics of setting this up and then the monitoring plan that was put into place?
We had 2 adjacent hotel rooms at a nearby hotel, and our tech team worked their magic and used their special techniques to put audio and video monitoring equipment in the one room, and the live monitoring occurred right next door. So as we were in the next door room, we were observing via video feed and audio what was happening right next to us.
Can you, were you involved in monitoring yourself?
I was there the entire time that they were awake.
Okay.
Yes,
And so if you had the opportunity to see all their interactions?
I did.
Can you just sort of, I understand we're talking about like a whole night,
Mhm.
but can you kind of summarize the nature of their interactions?
They were emotional, sometimes combative. They were never on the same page with what was going on with Quentin with the investigation. They took breaks to just go get a cigarette or go get a drink and kind of come back.
Was he asking her about the truthfulness or lack thereof of the Origel story?
Repeatedly.
And what was she saying in response to those inquiries?
She doubled down on the Origel and brought up her alibi with Misty.
Is it fair to say that she was telling Danny the same lie that she was telling you?
Objection, Your Honor, leading questions.
I mean, the leading question is a question that calls for a particular answer. It's a yes or no question.
He is correct. Anybody with your question?
Is it fair to say that she was telling Danny the same lie that she was telling the police?
Yes. She was telling Danny the same story. She was sorry.
I'll just withdraw the question. So we can take this in court. Is there anything that occurred during this full evening and night of hotel recordings that?
Objection, Your Honor, it's a narrative question now. It's open-ended and broad.
I don't know how one could possibly object to a question that hasn't been finished, first of all, and I can assure you it does not call for a narrative response.
I've been here for over a week, Judge.
And- Be careful with the microphones for Ms. Natalie.
It's an open-ended question, Judge. It doesn't ask for a specific answer unless the witness testifies to what they want to testify. That's exactly what a narrative question is, and that's improper.
I'm gonna overrule and allow Mr. Dean to ask this question.
Is there anything that occurred during the hotel surveillance operation that suggested to you that Danny knew more than he was letting on or anything along those lines?
No.
I'd like to play a couple of clips from these recordings that have already been admitted into evidence and ask you a couple questions about them, okay?
Okay.
This is from State's Exhibit 32, the file beginning with 1941.
Question? Do you mind? Are you gonna get angry? I'm asking you a question before I ask you this question. No, because I need to know, are you gonna get angry?
No, I can't tell you if I'm getting angry, but no questions.
Why did you lie to me? About the word,
I didn't. I did not like anybody.
So you went and met Miss.
Yes, and I drove there and I drove out. And they tried to say that again. I asked them to show me a picture of Missy or whatever. Did y'all speak to my phone lady? Did you speak to her? Did you speak to her husband? So I wanted to know. You know, and they said her husband. Why didn't you speak to her?
Stop the play back in 1942-18 on the timestamp. What was that claim that the defendant just made about what the FBI had told her as to whom they had interviewed in reference to the Misty story? What did she say there?
She stated we had not spoken to the person she referenced as Misty, but we had spoken to that person's husband.
She said that y'all told her that.
Correct.
Okay. And this is on the night of the 8th, right?
Correct.
You said you were there for observing Bridget Brock's interview with the defendant earlier on this day, right?
Yes.
And anybody from the FBI told her anything like that?
No.
I'm opening up the clip on the same exhibit, the file name that begins 2029. And I'm going to start the playback at 20:33:05 on the timestamp.
And you went and met Miss.
You ain't met Missy, got her, Joe.
And you said they told her?
I think so, yes.
What did she say?
And she confirmed it.
She confirmed
I'm
it?
pretty sure, yes. It's not like they sat there and told me what was said.
Oh, but they.
They said that they spoke to Missy and they didn't question me no more about the ordeal.
Oh, okay.
What we just heard there, is that an accurate characterization of the defendant's interactions with Bridget Brock during that interview earlier that day?
No.
Sometime shortly after this, October 8th hotel room monitoring thing, is that when the phone wire operation started?
It started on October 9th, yes.
And was Danny cooperative with that as well?
Yes, he and his mother gave consent for us to monitor his cell phone.
Were you involved in the monitoring of that wiretap through the Florida time?
I was.
Were you like the point person for it?
I was. I reviewed it every day.
I want to move forward to the October 12th interview. We've heard testimony from Special Agent Snyder about this. I just want to ask you about a couple of things. Was there a point, what was the main point of bringing her in? Were you bringing her in to notify her of anything in particular that day on October 12th?
That was the day that we provided the death notifications and notification of the landfill search to the family members.
And at what point in that day or that interview did you notify the defendant of that?
We never actually said that Quentin was dead with her. It was understood. So maybe halfway through the time, we made it clear, but we never said the word dead.
At some point during that interview, did you tell her something to the effect of, we're about to start searching that landfill and we're 98% sure we're going to find Quentin in it?
I was very confident we were going to find Quentin in the landfill when I spoke to her, yes.
Did you tell her that?
Yes.
How did she react to that?
She said he wasn't in the bag, but it was hard to characterize. It wasn't shock, which is the most surprising thing of it.
Did you inform her mother, the defendant's mother, Billy Joe Howell, of the same thing at some point that day?
About an hour later,
Yeah, was that after the defendant's interview was concluded?
it was.
Where were you when you informed the defendant's mother of that?
Brad and our victim specialist and I went to the Buckhalter Road residence and informed her in her living room.
And how did she react when you told her that?
I told her in order. I told her I was going to tell her 3 things. And when she was done processing one, we would move to the next. So the first thing I told her was that Quentin had died. And she showed anguish. When she was ready to hear the next thing, I told her that we were going to find him in the landfill and that we would be announcing that search was commencing. And she pulled back from me and she said, "My baby is in the trash." And
Not a hearsay, she knows that.
I'm sorry,
Sustained,
may I respond, please, Ralph?
please.
The witness is describing Billy Joe Howell asking a question. And it can't be a statement offered for the truth, it's a reaction.
She offered a reaction. But the question, well, what she stated was what she said, what Billy Joe said.
When you,
And-
I understood.
Yes.
When you said that to Billy Joe Howell, that you believed him to be in the landfill and that you're gonna find him in the landfill, did she make any statements of fact to you in response to that?
no,
How did she react?
shock, horror, disbelief, anguish that there were 4 other people that we then notified that were at the house. And it was a picture of 5 different versions of anguish.
And was there a contrast there in how those people reacted, how the defendant had reacted earlier that day when you told me?
Yes.
Now, what was your, I want to ask you some questions about October 24th.
Okay.
Okay, but first I'd just like to ask you that, what was your typical day like between October 12th and October 24th? What did that look like for you?
Landfill operations commenced a few days following the 12th. So as those were going, I would get to the landfill for the sunrise brief to try to represent the case team and give some sort of morale or update motivation. I would go back to the office and review Danny's calls and texts from the previous day and attend to any investigative or administrative work that needed to be done. We were continuously following leads from the public and additional investigative avenues to make sure that we didn't close any doors too soon. And then Taylor and I would drive to the landfill to meet the team as they were wrapping up ahead of their lunch break so we could check boots, give updates, check on the status of everything, and kind of go in with everybody, and then back to the office.
Now, moving to October 24th, on this day, did the defendant make any recorded statements to anybody other than law enforcement?
Yes, she was on the local news.
And did you watch that news interview?
I did.
Do you see in front of you an exhibit marked as State's Exhibit 71?
I do.
All right. Your Honor, this is a certified copy of the defendant's October 24th news interview with WTSC, supported by the testing certificate. I would move this in State 71 at this time.
Okay.
Now, do you see in front of you a disc marked as State's Exhibit 72?
I do.
Now, do you know what that is? You need to pull it out of an envelope to see or what?
It's labeled WTOC interview redacted.
Okay. How does that exhibit differ from the one you just introduced?
This one is titled, Exhibit 71 is titled WTOC interview.
Okay. But I mean, what is 72 in relation to 71?
72 is what was shown on the news.
Okay.
And the 71 is the unredacted footage from WTOC.
Okay. And so 72 is?
What was shown on the news from WTOC
Okay.
of the news article.
72, is that like just the portions from the WTOC broadcast stitched together to show only the defendant talking?
Yes.
Like not the anchors and reporters and so forth?
Yes.
At this point, Your Honor, I can introduce State's Exhibit 72.
Okay.
Now, what are we going to hear the defendant say in this video? To the extent you remember.
That she didn't know where Quentin was and hoped he would be found, but if she had had anything to take responsibility for, that she would.
And with that, I'll publish it, Your Honor.
My kids woke up to me screaming, "Where's Quentin?" and running through the house. I ran and looked everywhere, inside, outside, just screaming for help. I've been here every day since this. I am not running and I'm not hiding. And if something does come up that I am at fault, I will take myself to that police station. And I will walk with her. All we want is justice for Quentin Simon. That's it. We want justice for Quentin.
Whatever cost it is. We don't care the cost.
We want answers just like everybody else does. At the end of it all, we love you, baby Q. My little monkey, and we want to hold.
So that was an interview that's filmed and aired on October 24th, right?
Yes.
Had you been in contact with her via telephone during the investigation?
With both Leilani and Billy, yes.
Can you tell us how you came to be in phone contact with the defendant?
On one of the days the team was at the residence, I walked out to give a backpack to her brother because it had medication in it. And during that conversation, the defendant offered me her phone number.
So from that point forward, you're able to call and text with her, I guess?
Yes.
Okay. This same day, October 24th, that she does this interview where she says, "We don't know what happened, we just want answers and justice, and if he's alive, we want to know." Did she send you a text message saying something different from that?
She did.
Do you see in front of you a document marked as State's Exhibit 73?
I do.
Can you tell us, is that a portion of your text message traffic with the defendant?
It is.
All right. Does it fairly and accurately depict at least this portion of the messages that the two of you exchanged?
It does.
Your Honor, I would introduce this as State 73.
No objection, Judge.
Exhibit 73 is admitted without objection.
All right. On the first page, you with me?
I am.
Okay. Do you see that last entry at the bottom?
I do.
Is this an incoming text that you received from the defendant or an outgoing text that you sent?
It is an incoming text that I received.
And what is the date and time of this text?
October 24th, 2022 at 5:45 p.m.
So that would have been right about the time that this interview was airing on the evening news, I guess.
Probably, yes.
What did she message you at that time?
Do you want me to read it?
Yes.
I'm not lying for Danny anymore. The reason why my story about Oragel and shit didn't make sense was because Danny told me to say that. He was the one who left, and my phone was in the car from my previous trip, and his was on the charger. I was already smoking a blunt on the porch, and when I got done, Danny was already laying in bed. All the lights were off, and I glanced at the kids as I was getting in the bed to go to sleep. That is why he took off. I'm innocent of this. He was the last one to see Quentin. He is that texted the babysitter, and he was that wasn't in bed when I woke for just a moment, and it was still dark, and he was the one who the only set of keys to my car the morning of my son's disappearance.
Now, did you later bring her in for an interview to memorialize that statement?
I did.
Formal interview. And when was that conducted?
October 31st
Where was it conducted?
at the FBI office.
What was your approach in this interview?
We really just wanted to have, it was a new story. And so we wanted to make sure that we had correctly captured what she was presenting to us. So we asked her to talk about what she had provided in the text and to just give the context and the complete story of that.
And did she essentially repeat to you what she had said in the text message?
More or less over the course of longer.
During this interview, we've seen some interviews to this point where she's sort of being challenged on things and has a certain reaction to that. During this interview, were you challenging her or pushing back, or were you more just letting her talk?
No, the goal was to just let her talk and get her whole story.
And what was her demeanor like in this interview?
She was affable. We were laughing, the three of us, Detective Lemons and I and Leilani. She was open, calm.
Now, did you, on this same day that interview was conducted, did you all collect DNA samples from the defendant and her mother?
We did.
Can you tell me about the process for doing that? Who did it and what was done?
Usually we let them do it themselves when they're consenting. Basically, you have a giant Q-tip and you scrape the inside of the cheek to get some cheek cells, and you place it in a plastic baggie and seal it up in front of everybody.
All right, and is it marked with the name of the person who it came from?
It is.
Did you log those into evidence at the Savannah FBI office?
I did.
One item for the defendant's DNA sample and one for her mother's?
That's correct.
All right, were you involved in having those sent to the FBI lab in Quantico at some point?
Yes, I directed them to be FedExed to the lab.
And did that happen?
It did.
When did that happen in relation to November 18, the day that the remains were discovered?
We sent the DNA up on or around November 1st, just so it would be on ready for the lab.
Okay. Now, we've talked a little bit about the phone monitoring operation. I think you said you were the one who was doing that on a day-to-day basis.
Yes.
Do you see in front of you a disc marked as State's Exhibit 74?
I do.
Do you know what that disc is?
These are select recordings from Danny's wire.
Did they fairly and accurately capture a couple of conversations that they had during this investigation?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would introduce this as State 72.
Objection.
Department 74.
74.
And I would ask the publishers to read portions of this. There are two files on this disk. The first one is a call with the date 10/30/2022 in the subject line. When would that call have been made?
This would have been the night before that Halloween interview would have been made on October 30th.
I'm going to open that file up and play starting at 9:50.
Thinking of every day, 7 or 8 in the
the morning, is what happens, I guess, with sober in the morning. I wake up early, I go to bed at a decent time. I get up in the morning and make breakfast for everybody, and clean the house. And I'm completely different person. I didn't notice it. I take care of the house and clean. I do dishes.
Yeah, it's been a while since you've done that.
Yeah, no, I don't. I actually cook dinner and I do the things you deserve for me to do. I'm sorry. I will never touch cook or cooking with memory. I become angry and impulsive when I'm on it.
I stopped the play back at 11:05. What was it we heard her say there about the effect of cocaine on her?
That it makes her angry and impulsive.
The next file on this disk has the date 10/31/2022 in the file name. When would that call have been made?
The evening of October 31st, 2022.
Is that the same day of the interview in which she was putting it on Danny?
It is.
And I'm going to play here from 27:02. We'll go 27:03.
So what did you do when you went out after I fell asleep?
All I did was wait for long. I only got over a job.
All right, what was that exchange there that we heard?
Danny asked Leilani again what she had done after he had gone to sleep the night that Quentin disappeared. And she said that she had done a line and went out to get the Orajel.
Now, did that conflict in any way with what she had just told you in the October 31st interview?
It did.
In what manner?
She said that she didn't go get Orajel and during the interview, and that Danny had been the one driving the car.
Now, at some point, when you were at the residence on October 5th at some point, right?
I was.
It was the pack and play that Quentin was said to have been sleeping in, and the pillowcase in the pack and play. Was that taken into evidence?
That day it was, yes.
What agency initially took it into evidence?
The Chatham County Police Department.
And was the pillow and pillowcase at some point turned over to you from the Chatham County Police Department?
It was.
Who gave it to you?
Detective Lemons.
And what did you do with it?
I prepared it to be FedExed to the lab for analysis.
In Quantico?
The FBI lab, yes, in Quantico.
And did that happen? Was it FedEx to the lab?
It was.
Okay. Now I'd like to ask you about November 18.
Okay.
Were you involved in the coordination and supervision of the landfill search throughout?
Yes, I staffed all of the volunteers from Savannah and Brunswick. And as I mentioned earlier, I was present at least twice a day. If I didn't have administrative or investigative work on a given day, I was dressed out searching.
Now, we've heard some testimony to this point that suspected human remains were found there that day after some period of unsuccessful searching. Were you there at the outset of that discovery that day?
I was at the United States Attorney's Office facilitating an interview, and Brad called me and said that a skull had been found. And I immediately left the meeting at the U.S. Attorney's Office and quickly got to the landfill and was there for the rest of the day and the additional findings.
Can you describe what was going on when you got there? What was the scene like at the landfill?
Somber, but everyone was looking very, very carefully. We knew we were looking for small pieces of a small child. And fortunately, the skull is more recognizable. And so we had believed that if we found one piece, all other pieces that we would find would be within 6 feet of the trash as it was compacted. So we knew that that was our day when we found him at the beginning of the day. And so we were, as you can imagine, there are a lot of bones in a landfill. And so we had to sort through chicken wings and T-bones and all of that to find what appeared to be human and separate those out. And that was throughout the day.
What do you remember about the period of time that passed from the first apparent item, I guess from the first apparent item of human remains being found and you getting that call from Brad to when you'll kind of stop and identify and suspected human remains that day? How long did that process of discovery take?
It took, I would estimate, around 5 to 6 hours. We finished the search from where the skull had been found, laid out more trash and searched that and broke for lunch. That search section had been pushed over during lunch, but then we realized that there were more likely bones within it that appeared to be human. And so I asked them to pull the deck back, meaning the trash they pushed aside that we'd been through. They were able to pull it back with the bulldozer, and we researched that. And so after that, we did one more deck, maybe two, without finding anything, and that was the end of the day.
What do you mean by one more deck? Maybe two? What is it?
So the landfill had laid out a large open space that was flat. And we knew the pretty specific area where we expected to find Quentin, but trash as far as Statesboro was coming to our landfill. And so you imagine it compacted very quickly. So we had to dig through the compacted trash, pull out a reasonable amount to search at a time in a safe place. We had safety officers out because there's a lot that can cut you. We didn't have an issue with noxious fumes, but that was also a concern. So we pull that out. The safety officers would look through the deck and make sure that the search team was cleared to go forward. And then we had these rakes, and you would rake through every little piece and open trash bags that were still open and work your way until you had discarded all of the trash behind you, and the group kind of converged in a circle and turned in the bones that we had collected or the items of interest that we weren't quite sure, just needed someone else to look at. Most of us carried a bag on our tape ourselves so we could just drop the bones in and keep going when there was something like a skull, or on this day, a swath of skin or pieces that needed immediate attention. We would call someone forward. Since I was not a searcher that day, I would go onto the deck to get pieces to bring back to the evidence tent.
How far apart on the search deck were pieces of Quentin found from one another?
That's kind of hard to describe because he was strewn because he'd been strewn when he was compacted into his place of rest at the time. And then the bulldozer dug up chunks and laid out the deck, and then we spread them out. And so he was found across 2 or 3 decks, and the decks were, half a football field. So many searchers found different pieces of him, yes.
So if you do the math, 3 different decks, each of which is maybe a half of a football field, talking about like 1.5 football field area over which pieces of Quentin were found.
Once he was spread out, or once the decks were spread out, yes.
Do you see in front of you a binder marked as State's Exhibit? Do you see in front of you a binder?
I do.
Is it marked as a State's Exhibit?
It is. It's marked as
What's the number?
77.
Okay. Could you take a look through that and tell me if you recognize it? What's in there?
I do.
What are you looking at here?
I'm looking at evidence photos of human remains.
And are those the pieces of Quentin you were talking about being found that day?
They are.
Where were these photographed before they were transported to the lab at Quantico?
They were.
And do these photographs fairly and accurately depict the suspected remains of Quentin Simon as you viewed them that day?
They do.
Your Honor, I would introduce this as State's Exhibit 77.
Subject to the publishing and, I guess, rules we talked about earlier, Judge, no objection.
Thank you. Yeah, 37 years.
Thank you. I'd like to publish just a few. First of all, there's like 60-some pictures in there, right? I'd like to publish just a few of them and ask you a couple questions about them, okay?
Okay.
Can you flip to the first page in that binder?
Yes.
Is this it up on the screen here?
It is.
What does that appear to you to be, and what did it appear to you to be that day?
It is the top half of a skull.
Sorry.
That's it.
Can you flip to the second image in this binder?
Yes.
What does this appear to you to be, and what did it appear to you to be that day?
When we found this and brought it to the tents, we weren't sure when we saw it from here. What I know now and can see is it is a severed foot, cut from the ankle, looking from the inside of the ankle down.
Can you see one of the ankle bones in this image, just to orient us?
Yes, to orient, this is the ankle bone where it was cut, and then you see almost a left toenail, and you can start seeing the shape of the foot from there.
Turning to the next page in the binder.
Yes.
What is this?
That is the same foot flipped over, so you can clearly see the skin of the foot. This is his heel. And then you shake down to the tips of the toe bones through the 5. We had a huge poster of Quentin after bath time, dressed and barefooted, on the top of the landfill to remember what we were looking for. And so we had been looking at his foot and his forehead for 5 weeks, and that is what we found. That is his foot.
And finally, the fourth image in the binder.
Yes.
What do you believe this to be?
I believe that it is a swath of skin going from the length of a body, of a toddler's body. So the shoulders come through the back and then down one leg. This was a piece that Officer Zerke passed to Kim Johnson, who passed to me as we carried out with tongs, because at the time it was hard to recognize, but we knew it stood out from everything else we had seen in the landfill.
Now, I'd like to ask you some questions about getting Quentin up to the FBI lab in Quantico. Okay? We've heard testimony from Special Agent Taylor Burns that he was responsible for initially transporting Quentin's remains from the landfill that day to the FBI office in Savannah. Does that align with your recollection?
Yes, we all met him at the office afterwards.
And he's described the packaging of Quentin into 4 different bags and placed him inside of a box.
Yes.
Were you involved in the further transport of Quentin to the FBI lab?
I was.
Can you tell us about that?
Starting from the beginning of the day, or just the logistics?
What happened from who took them from the FBI lab in Savannah to anywhere else?
So we arranged for private transport for Quentin. No one felt comfortable FedExing him or putting him on any other way. So I wrapped the box and drove him to Macon, where I met another agent who is on our fly team. And I handed Quentin to Agent Keys, who took him to Atlanta and kept him secure until the next day, where he flew him on an FBI aircraft to meet the lab in Virginia.
Is that how Quentin got to the FBI lab at Quantico?
It is.
Do you see in front of you 2 pictures stapled together and marked as States Exhibit? I think it should be 92, is that right?
92?
92. Okay. Do you recognize those images?
I do.
What do those images show?
That is how I wrapped Quentin's box to transport him. And so the first image was what I could offer to the family when I gave a second death notification. And the second image is how he rode with me in our truck.
Do these images fairly and accurately depict the events that you've been talking about?
Yes, I took the second picture myself.
I'd offer this in a States Exhibit 92 now.
Minute without objection.
Publish the first image here. Can you describe to us what we're seeing here?
We had Scott Schumann and Jeff Allen were at the office with me to retrieve Quentin and to borrow Scott's work truck to drive him. We three of us had just a quiet time wrapping him appropriately, and we thought this would be a nice image to be able to give. It's what I gave to Leilani and Billy Joe when I told them we had found him in the landfill. But he is in that box. He's in the bags in the box, and we wrapped it in a black cloth, and then the flag.
Moving on to the second image.
That is Quentin in my back seat, how he rode with me on the way to Macon.
One moment, please, Ryan. What was the date that Quentin made it to the lab in Waka, if you remember?
On or around November 21st.
We talked a little bit earlier about the defendant telling you via text message on October 24, and then in an interview on October 31, that she actually hadn't driven to Azalea and had been dating with her phone or something like that. You remember talking about that?
I do.
Did she eventually admit to you that wasn't true?
Yes. About Danny.
Yeah.
Yes.
And was that on November 21st in her final interview?
Yes.
Okay. And did she tell you at that time that what she had said about Danny on October 24th and October 31 was just a theory that she was throwing out there?
That's correct.
One moment, please. When evidence is submitted to the FBI lab, is it submitted under a particular FBI case number?
It is.
Was that done in this case with all the items that you discussed?
Yes.
What was that FBI case number?
7C-AT-3665337.
Say that last one again.
3665337. The Quentin Simon case.
I just asked you how you, I expected you to have to refer to your notes. How is it that you remember that? I'll tell you that.
We saw it a lot.
No further questions, Ron.
Judge, can we put for a second?
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a 15-minute break, come back. We're going to recess for that period of time. Same instructions, don't discuss the case, don't look up anything about the case, no research. All right, 15 minutes. J6 in the state of
Oh,
Florida versus Layla
my.
Simon. Ms. Simon is present with her counsel at counsel's table. The state is present as well. Jurors are not in the room yet. So tomorrow morning start time. We'll start at 9:30. Okay. I realized that I got scheduled with bond hearings, a couple of them at 9 o'clock. But we can start by 9:30. I should be here. Anything else that we need to take up before we start again?
There you go.
Thank you.
There you go.
Mr. Hilliard, are you ready to proceed?
I am.
And the state's ready? Okay. Please bring in the jurors.
Jurors in somewhere?
All right, thank you, Williams. Okay, please have your seats. And you've observed the rules, the court's instructions? Thank you. Mr. Hilliard?
Special Agent Solomon, you said you went to Georgia Tech and you got your bachelor's in what again?
Economics, international affairs, and French.
Okay, and so economics, international affairs, and French, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And you got your master's in what?
Business administration with concentrations in finance and entrepreneurship.
No psychology training or anything like that?
No, not in school.
All right, well, that begs the question then, if not in school, then where?
On the job.
On the job? Okay. And you say on the job, I'm going to assume you mean at the academy, right?
And throughout the job, on the job training or various trainings throughout. I've been with the Bureau for 14 years. So the behavioral analysis unit will give short trainings, lunch and learns, things like that, as well as consults on various cases that I worked on.
Yeah. But you're not in the behavior analysis unit, are you?
I'm not.
Okay. I didn't think so. That kind of threw me for a loop. So let me ask a question. It's kind of the first thing you talked about. You're talking about Exhibit 10, Image 109. I'm familiar with the conversation that you're talking about as a Mickey Mouse toy. You said that had been there for a minute, correct?
I said it appeared that it had been there a minute.
So, I mean, it did have dust and cobwebs and stuff like that on it, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you also then immediately after that referenced a conversation you had with Ms. Simon. But I remember that conversation. I don't remember her saying that it was a racing Mickey Mouse toy. And I don't remember her saying it was his favorite toy either. So what was the relevance of the Mickey Mouse picture you showed us?
I had not spoken to Miss Simon yet when I found the Mickey Mouse toy. I knew it from other investigators that she had stated that she had been missing with his favorite Mickey Mouse toy. So the first Mickey Mouse toy and the only Mickey Mouse toy that I saw, I noted.
Right, but that wasn't what she said. That was what you embellished, correct?
Objection, party noted. My badgering as well.
Okay, he does have her on cross-examination. Mr. Hilliard?
I'll rephrase it and break it down if it'll make it better. So your testimony was that was his favorite toy, and it was a racing Mickey Mouse toy. But that wasn't what she stated. That was what you stated, correct?
I didn't state that that toy in the image was his favorite toy. I
Okay.
stated that she said he was missing with his favorite toy, which was a Mickey Mouse toy.
Well, then that begs the question then, because what was the relevance of that picture then? That wasn't his favorite Mickey Mouse toy, and it wasn't a racing Mickey Mouse, and that toy had been there in the garage for a minute. What was the relevance of that picture? None. I'll move on. Thank you.
Objection. The witness should be permitted to answer.
Thank you. Please stand.
On October 5th, we had known this family and the circumstances for only a matter of hours. So every single detail that was presented to us, we pursued and we followed and we looked to give context to. So if we were told that a favorite toy was a Mickey Mouse toy, we looked for a Mickey Mouse toy to see if there was any truth to the statement. And I was able to provide that image to various people in Quentin's family to see if they recognized that toy or any other Mickey Mouse toy as one that Quentin preferred.
Okay. Did you do that?
Yes,
Okay. Did anyone say that was his favorite toy?
they said no Mickey Mouse toy was his favorite toy.
Correct. Okay. So, as a matter of fact, you stated that that had been there. Well, it had been there for quite a while, right?
Yes.
Okay. It's not the first time we've heard about this Mickey Mouse toy. Okay. So my point is on October 5th, when this whole thing started, okay, you didn't know the relevance or importance of a Mickey Mouse toy, correct?
I did when I had that photo taken. The relevance was that he was reported missing with his favorite toy. There were hundreds of toys in that house, and that is the only Mickey Mouse toy that stood out.
I would say there were probably 1,000 toys in it.
That's fair.
And I think that's a fair assessment. There are a lot
I
of
agree.
toys, okay? But my point is that was 2 years ago. Here we are 2 years later, okay? And you had a chance to review all that. So my point is while on October 5th of 2022, that may have seemed relevant to you or important to you, and I can understand that. Here we are 2 years later, and you know that it's of no importance, and yet you still harp on that. Why is that?
Objection, argumentative. How is it just not a question for all the work?
Sustained.
I will move forward then. You also talked about the appropriate level of emotionality. What is the appropriate level of emotionality? Who trained you as to what the appropriate level is?
I didn't state appropriate. I cannot judge appropriate. I can only state what I observe.
But that's not true. You have judged appropriate, and you stated it several times on direct from Mr. Dean, did you not?
Did I say appropriate?
Well, the appropriate level of emotionality. You said that I'm trying to look at her, the exact words was overly emotional, I guess, or not showing enough emotion. That seems to be the two things we're getting with her. So with regard to Miss Simon, she either shows too much emotion or she shows not the appropriate level of emotion. What's the appropriate level of emotion?
When I use those comparisons, it's within the bell curve of my observations across other people in similar circumstances, other people at different baselines that I've observed. And she was generally at one extreme or the other of my experience in dealing with people.
Okay. And let's talk about your first time meeting Miss Simon was October 5th, correct?
Yes.
You had never met her before that day, correct?
Correct.
Okay. You didn't know her before that day, correct?
Correct.
And you drew your conclusions based on that day, correct?
No.
Really? So you didn't decide that she wasn't being truthful or she wasn't showing the appropriate emotion on October 5th of 2022?
I didn't speak to her about anything substantive on October 5th.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. I'll move on. How about October 7th, or was it? Or 8th? Which was it?
I didn't speak to her on either of those days.
October 12th.
I did.
You made one by then, correct? And that was 1 week later.
Yes.
Okay. Had you spoken to her between October 5th and October 12th?
Yes.
On the phone, in person?
Both, or definitely in person and text. Sometimes when I would talk to her mom on the phone, she would be there, but not directly on the phone.
So again, it comes back to having had a week's worth of it. What would be the appropriate level of emotion to satisfy you at that point in time on October 12th?
There's no answer to that.
Exactly. So you spoke to Mr. Youngkin, correct?
Yes.
And same question for him. You never met him on October 5th, had you?
Correct.
And you didn't know anything about him on October 5th, did you?
Correct.
Okay. But you came to the conclusion that he showed the appropriate emotional level, correct?
I didn't say appropriate.
Okay. Well, then what did you say then?
I said he was exhausted and forthcoming, but minimized certain items. I believe that was my testimony.
And I believe you did speak with him on October 5th, correct?
5th, yes.
And he was angry and tired and upset as the interview wore on, was he not?
He was frustrated at the 11 p.m.
Well, in your mind, is frustrated the same thing as angry?
No.
What's the difference?
Frustrated can be exasperation towards a specific situation, but not directed towards a person.
Okay. So then what's your definition of angry then?
Negative emotion towards a person.
So angry means towards a person and frustrated means towards a situation.
They're not the same emotion.
Okay. So can you be angry without being frustrated?
Yes.
Can you be frustrated without being angry?
Yes.
Can you be frustrated or angry without being violent?
Yes.
So it is possible then.
Yes.
Okay. Now, you also talked to Mr. Dean about a tattoo. Is it uncommon for parents to get tattoos of their children?
No.
Okay, so there's nothing unusual about that. Parents do it all the time, correct?
Correct.
And this was a statement that was made, was it on October 12th?
On the 5th and the 12th.
5th and the 12th. And was it made on video, audio? Where was it made?
The 12th was made on video and audio.
So on the 12th, she talked about the tattoo on video?
Yes.
Okay. Not outside smoking.
That was on the 5th.
Okay. And do you ever recall Danny ever saying, I'm assuming since you were in charge of the hotel audio and video, you've watched most, if not all of that?
Yes.
Okay. Do you ever recall Danny saying, I'm just trying to save my own ass in one of their arguments?
I don't remember that verbatim, but yes,
He said something
that
like
would
that.
he would have said something to that effect. Yes.
Okay. And was it really his idea, or was it just part of the natural suggestion in the conversation you had with him? I mean, you were already going that way anyway in the conversation, weren't you?
The hotel had already been addressed as far as just giving them a place away from the hubbub of the house. But he did jump ahead of what we were talking about to ask if we were going to wire it up.
Well, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but it's not like you weren't already suggesting in that direction to begin with, were you? He kind of already knew what was coming.
I don't know what he knew at the time he addressed that.
Okay. Well, who offered? Did he ask to be put up in a hotel?
I believe our victim services offered that.
So you offered to Lonnie to put him up in a hotel, or you offered to Danny to put him up in a hotel?
I don't know. I wasn't part of that conversation.
But it was offered.
It was offered.
And they accepted, or Danny accepted?
I don't know who accepted.
Now, let me ask you this. You had mentioned something to Mr. Dean on direct examination a minute ago. You had said that you pretty much had told Leilani on October 8th that you suspected that Quentin was dead. Is that a fair statement?
I didn't speak to Leilani on October 8th.
Well, I didn't say you did. I said you had intimated as early as October 8th that y'all suspected that Quentin was dead.
I said as early as October 5th, we suspected he was dead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wrote it down wrong. October 5th then. Okay. So, and that's, again, part of the interrogation techniques would be confronting people with your beliefs or your opinion or your ideas of the evidence, correct?
Yes.
And inconsistencies, which you've done, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So y'all pretty much stated that from October 5th forward that that's what you believed. And I'm seeing the videos ad nauseum. And that was what you and Agent Schneider and Detective Lemons and basically anyone who did any interviews with Miss Simon suggested to her, correct? That they believed that she had done something to her child or to come clean about it, correct?
For the most part.
Right. So I'm a little curious because when Mr. Dean asked you a minute ago about her reaction sometime later when you said that you believe Quentin to be dead in the landfill, you made a big deal about her lack of emotion, but she'd been facing questioning from y'all for quite a while, correct?
Objection, argumentative. In particular, the day-to-day deal, which was the question.
Mr. Hilliard,
I'll break
rephrase.
it down and do it one question at a time. So you questioned her many times. You made, correct, from October 5th on.
The team.
The whole team, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a bunch of questionings, a bunch of interviews, a bunch of statements made by you and the entire team that you all believe Quentin's dead somewhere, right?
I don't think we said dead until the 12th.
Okay. And she's the focus of it completely for
Yes.
this entire week, right?
She was the only one that had lied to us, and that is why.
Well, we'll get to that in a minute. But from October 5th to October 12th, that's what you're doing, right?
Yes.
And then a minute ago, when Mr. Dean asked you, you said that, oh, she didn't react surprised when we said it, that we believe Quentin was dead. Well, you've been questioning her for a week, right? Do you think the emotion may have worn off by then?
It hadn't worn off on the other 5 people I told that day.
Okay. And everyone's the same though, right?
If you're asking for a basis of comparison for why her reaction stood out in my mind versus the others, that is why.
Okay. And let's talk about that then. How often did you question, or your team question, Paul Simon? How many times in that same period of time?
He had been interviewed at least 3 times and had interacted with us on numerous occasions.
All right. So at least 3 interviews. How about Danny?
He had been interviewed at least 4 times, to my knowledge, and was in regular communication.
Okay. And he also helped you set up the wiretap in the hotel at the same time frame.
After his 3rd interview, yes.
And how many times did you talk into Ms. Simon, your team, in that same time frame?
Numerous times on the 5th. I'm not sure how many times that was. Once on the 8th in person.
A number of times, especially on the 5th, correct?
Yes.
So you don't think that any emotional shock may have worn off after all that?
I have never seen a parent not be shocked when their child was dead.
Okay. Well, And let me ask you this. You'd already made your mind up on October 5th. The team had, at least, correct?
We had our suspicions. We had not made up our mind. We were pursuing all avenues.
Now, you talked about Mr. Dean played this, I guess it's the phone conversation where she says cocaine makes her angry and impulsive.
Yes.
Okay. But angry and impulsive does not mean violent, does it?
We didn't suggest that.
No. Now, with regard to your involvement of taking the remains to the lab, you took it from here to Macon, then to Atlanta, and then by plane to Virginia, correct?
Was the path, yes. My leg was to Macon.
And you spoke with, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth here, but when was it you spoke with Danny Youngkin yourself?
About what?
Anything?
I spoke with him on October 5th and October 7th and October 8th and 9th. After that, he was no longer in Savannah, and I didn't see him in person for the rest of the investigation. And he mostly spoke with Brad over the phone. So I don't know the individual times I spoke with him over the phone with Brad.
All right. We'll just speak about what you know. When did Mr. Youngkin leave to go back to North Carolina?
On around October 9th.
So from October 5th to 9th, he was here, went back to Dunn, North Carolina, October 9th.
By way of Atlanta, I believe.
Okay. And you said you seized the pack and play and I guess the pillow or sheets or whatever it was that was in the pack and play?
I seized it from Chatham County, who had seized it from the house.
All right. And you forwarded it to
The
Crime
FBI
Lab?
lab.
Okay. And did you also listen to the wiretap?
I did.
Okay. Did you listen to all of the wiretap?
I did.
Okay. At any point in time on the wiretap, did Ms. Simon say that she had intentionally harmed her child?
No.
Did she ever say she stabbed, shot, strangled, did any of those things to that child?
No.
Okay. And how long was the wiretap in place, if you remember?
Until sometime after November 21st, within a couple of days, we would have taken it down.
So about 6 weeks, give or
Correct.
take.
Correct.
And same thing, you watched or listened to all the hotel audio and video. Same question. Did she ever say that she harmed her child?
There was question of the definition of the word harm.
Well, I'll break it down then for you.
I meant for her was why, as far as spanking, that kind of thing, versus the other items that you just listed.
Well, let's talk about strangling. Did she say she strangled her kid?
No.
Shot her kid?
No.
Stabbed her kid?
No.
Okay. And you've watched them all, and I'm not going to go through them all, but they were a lot of heated exchanges between her and Danny in that hotel room, were there not?
There were.
Okay. That's all the questions I got, Judge.
Can you redirect?
I'd like to play for you a short video clip here and see whether you can tell us what this is, okay? All right. First of all, looking at the first frame of this video, do you recognize the date, place, and event?
Yes, this is October 12th at the FBI office, interview of Ms. Simon.
This is a 36-second video clip from that interview, Your Honor. I have not marked this disc yet, but I will mark it as the next exhibit in sequence. And I will now offer this clip into evidence. This state's exhibit, what is it going to be? 93? 93.
Any objection?
I have to see it first. Judge, to know what it is.
Do you need an opportunity to see it?
36 seconds. I listened to it, there's no objection.
All right, thank you. Exhibit 93 is admitted without objection.
I'll play that now. Can the board hear that as it's playing from the laptop speakers?
You need to get a little louder though.
We'll peg the laptop speakers here, so the ones out here. I'm not trying to prolong this. Here we go.
I've been thinking a lot about your tattoo though. I mean, because what happens when you go down? Yeah, so this is what I'm going to do because all of this, I'm gonna take a business, pick up a mirror and a compass and some spires and chains and stuff, and I'm gonna put place again. Let's go there and remember how much I can. And just wait for it, so they don't speak all that, and that's just what I'm doing.
Can you tell us more or less what she was saying there? It's a little difficult to make out.
She was describing the tattoo I brought up was the Hawaiian symbol I was talking about earlier, and then she was describing her intentions for a more elaborate tattoo for the future for Quentin.
And what was she saying? She wanted to be in it. I heard something about compasses maybe.
And water because he likes to swim.
And you're saying that's something that she had talked to you about as early as October 5th?
Yes.
And I think you noted that earlier, something that you found a little unusual, right?
Yes.
Did it sound to you like she was describing like an in memoriam?
Okay, this caught my attention. Thank you, Moonshine. 5 hours ago, Kingsport, Tennessee, multiple reports of a critical incident, crime scene at Miller Village, reports indicating a young child involved and several under arrest. I think she probably researched it. I wonder if it was on there. So I'm going to keep my eye out on this at Scanner Food. I'll map that out. I'll come back earlier in the morning after this trial and see if there's any updates on that and look at where that is. But that has been something that's reported. Kingsport, Tennessee, multiple reports of a critical incident. Crime scene at Miller Village, reports indicating a young child involved and several under arrest. I'll read the comments and stuff in a little while. Well, in the morning. All right.
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
To rephrase your question?
Are you familiar with in memoriam tattoos?
I am.
People will get with like a date of death and date of birth and so forth.
Yes.
Did it sound to you like that's the sort of tattoo that she was describing?
Yes.
Calls for speculation, Judge.
Here's the question. Oh,
So I'll just ask the question again for the clarity of the record. Did it sound to you like that is the sort of tattoo that she was describing?
Yes, because the other two children weren't mentioned in that conversation.
No further questions, Your Honor.
any recalls? Okay. And is there any reason not to excuse this witness?
There you go.
There you are.
All right, thank you. You are excused, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you. Now, I believe this is a good breaking point. Unless y'all want to spend another hour or two. Okay. Anyway, I think this is a good breaking point. We're going to get started tomorrow morning. We're going to get started at 9:30. We're going to get started at 9:30, a little bit earlier. So I'm going to instruct you once again not to talk about the case, not to do any research on the case. Don't allow anyone to talk with you about the case. All right. And with that, I wish you all a good night. Thank you.
Drew's exiting.
Thank you. All right. And with that, we're in recess until tomorrow morning at 9:30. Have a good night, everyone.
Damn it. Sorry. Tic Tac, you gotta be my reminder. S tapes. Are you kidding me? Did they talk about that? Because I missed it. That's nothing I want to see. I hope they hit it like they hit Quentin's pictures. Leilani looks shook. She definitely does. You know, it's like you almost feel bad. I do feel bad for her in a way. I think this is sad, and I think if she would have had better parenting. Oh, texts. Okay. You said tapes. I was like, what? Tic Tac. Don't scare me. We'll all be blind. Did they? I wasn't listening really hard earlier, but did they say that the dealers would be on camera, or did they agree to not have them on camera? It seemed like she was siding with the state. Tomorrow's going to be good. He said if he wanted to call the drug dealer, he could have called the drug dealer. He could bring him on stand. He went and got the dude. He was not playing. He was like, all right, I bet you they gave him a subpoena. Listen, I've seen the dude. He's married. That's why there's a missus. Why you gotta burp while I'm live?
Sorry. I wasn't.
You do that shit all the time.
I'm sorry.
Don't laugh. He does that shit on purpose, guys. Faces on camera, smile got captured. Yeah, I seen that. I wonder if that's because she's blushing, happy she's gonna see him. Dude, this is crazy. I can't. It is my opinion that she did this to this baby. It's heartbreaking. This week, I'm going to try to stay good and not go ape shit and attack people because we're getting to the end here. I want to pay attention to the facts. But if there's a moment I feel like I need to call someone out because of what they did, to Danny. Hey, Earl, stop it. I'll give you just the facts, ma'am. But I don't know. I'm really like done with the antics and games people have played in all these cases. It's not. It angers me because at the end of the day, what's really left there is Quentin, is Summer, is Sebastian, is the West Boys, Kaylee Anthony, Haley Cummings. At the end of it, there are real children, real families that suffer the loss, friends of the children. Games, it's all about money to people, man. I'm telling you, that fucking poster on, I still to this day cannot believe that Cher did that. Like, I know I've been showing all the tragedy pimping. I'm cutting down on that a little bit this week. Oh, we'll show some because I got a lot more. However, my point was they shouldn't be outside harassing neighborhoods. That's my qualm with those people. Other than that, I have none. Yeah, I am. I'm going to bed because I got to get up for the trial in the morning. And I've had a long couple days. So I will. I'll see you guys in the morning. I'm going to go catch a couple winks. Maybe go look at that. See, look at that. They're messing with the cameras. What are they doing? Ooh. We got the jailer. We're getting the floors. All right, guys. Peace and love. I'll see you tomorrow. Good night, AS2.